first as we're trying to figure out what's next for humanity. And I think this space does a wonderful job. So I know your subscription is high, but it's well worth seeing the community grow from it. So that's what I'm talking about.
Thank you. I appreciate that very much. We just went live as Hustletown was talking on YouTube. Hustletown is considering becoming a subscriber on X. Subscribers on X are our sponsors. We have three of them. Hustletown is thinking about becoming fourth subscriber, which is a hefty price. It's $239 a month. And Hustletown, thank you very much. You've already done so much for the space. I really appreciate that on so many fronts. And our other sponsors are Pay More, which today I'm going to visit a Pay More location, turn in my current laptop, and get a MacBook Pro so that I don't have to put ice on my computer, risk water damage to run these spaces. And Paymore is hooking me up with a MacBook Pro. So thank you very much, Paymore, for sponsoring this space. They're also pay $239 a month on X as well. And they just reached their 100th follower on X yesterday. So thank you very much for those of you who took action to support our sponsors. And our second sponsor is Joa, joa-life.com. If you use code TSLA Live to buy your premium accessories for your Teslas or Joa, we also get 5% and you get 5% discount. That's great. And then Nick is going to satisfy today our third sponsor's request, which is, what is your favorite Elon quote, Nick?
Wow, favorite Elon quote? Putting me on the spot, Yaman. Man, let me think about that for a second. I should have it on the tip of my tongue. Give me a second.
Okay, sounds good. What did you come up to say?
Oh, I'm just like a regular speaker, so I was just coming up to see how
Yeah,
you're
okay.
doing and talk Tesla.
Okay, cool. All right. Dallas, what do you want to start with today?
I was interested on your post on you talking about is Elon going to stick with the company if he becomes involved in politics? I thought that was an interesting take. I don't think he would, but I'd love to hear what other people say.
Yeah, there's a post going around that actually X pushed it to my other account on X, which is kind of interesting because I don't really engage with Tesla stuff there. And it says something like, if Elon gets a government job, I don't want to quote the post, but it's a pretty popular post and it talks about the potential of Elon having to leave Tesla and his companies if he takes a role at the government. Hustle-san, what do you think about that potential?
Uh, I really don't want him to leave any of the companies. I think politics is one thing and having to support your companies is another, but what SpaceX is doing, what Neuralink and Tesla, that that trumps America to me. That's Star Trek Federation type stuff. So I hope it doesn't go that far. I don't mind him being a consultant, but he doesn't need any positions. We got to get there first.
Yeah, he did a great job at the Madison Square Garden rally. And now Philadelphia is suing Elon to make him stop paying $1 million a day to those who sign a pledge, which is amazing because the pledge is just the First and Second Amendment, really. Do you support free speech and do you support right to bear arms? That's all it is. Why would Philadelphia try to stop the guy from promoting the US Constitution? It makes no sense whatsoever. Nick, what are your thoughts around Philadelphia suing Elon on that?
Yeah, it's very interesting. I think obviously Elon's not donating himself, it's through his PAC, and so he's protected in that sense. But it's just to slow down the movement because they've seen the numbers of, and the American PAC is showing it in Pennsylvania specifically. There's over like 100% more voters at this time now than were in 2020 that have returned their ballots. So it seems as though Elon is hitting an audience and it's working, and they're trying to slow it down, in my personal opinion.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly what it is. They're trying to slow him down. I mean, even when I went to the rally in Pennsylvania, um, asked him a question, I noticed that there's a younger crowd than I would have expected at this rally, at the Elon rally. And it was mostly like I didn't see many Teslas in the parking lot. It was maybe like less than 1% of the cars in the parking lot with Teslas. So it's 99% people coming who are not even huge Tesla fans. So um, yeah, I mean, I guess just the fact that Philadelphia is trying to slow down Elon probably means he's having a huge impact, material impact. Wes Wallen is in YouTube live chat right now and says, I can field FSD questions here, but can't join as a speaker currently. So if you have any autopilot, Tesla FSD type of questions, hardware, software, head over to YouTube live chat through the link at the top of your screens and ask Wes Wallen. Wes used to work at Tesla as a product manager. He played a big role in deciding what type of sensors need to go onto Teslas, and how the future is going to pan out on autonomous driving. And so far, he and his team have proven correct. So we'll see. So if you want to pick his brain, I'm a ex-Tesla employee, ex-SpaceX employee, then head over to YouTube live chat through the link at the top of our screens. Bull 2035.
Yeah, most of the things Elon is doing, they can't stop. Elon can pay all the money he wants to get people to get people to knock on doors to encourage people to vote and so forth, and he can do rallies. The problem here, though, is Elon's requiring to get $1 million or to be registered for the $1 million prize that you have to be a registered voter. So he's essentially offering people something. That's their theory, at least, offering something in exchange for them to register it, so then they can apply to try to get the $1 million. That's the issue. It's the way he's doing it, not necessarily that he's doing something.
Okay. Now, who do you think is right here? Do you think the way Elon's going about this is correct, or do you think Philadelphia is prevail?
Um, to be honest with you, I think that Elon shouldn't be doing it this way. I think he should spend the money other ways. It's too close to the line. He's got other ways to get voters out there if he wants to, and he's doing other ways too
Yeah,
that are working.
but that's not the question. The question is, in the court of law, who will prevail in your opinion?
I think it's probably this is an unlitigated area from what I understand. I haven't seen any other examples. Nobody else has tried this. The statute itself does seem to suggest you can't pay people to register. So this is one off from that. They have to register to then be eligible for a prize. So I think that they're likely to get an injunction, and I think it's likely not to be ruled upon and complete until after the election. There's no way a court's I think they'll issue an injunction that's to stop Elon from doing this. Elon's going to go on TV and say they're preventing his free speech. Elon's going to score all the points he wants, and then it's a dead issue after the election.
Very interesting. If there is an audience member today informed about these topics, please request to speak and share your informed opinion. Whether if you're looked into the law or you talk to people who may have better informed opinions about this topic, I'm curious about the details. My guess, however, is that Elon knows the letter of the law better than any of us and anyone in Philadelphia. Okay. So I highly doubt anything's going to come off of this. Ellie.
It's just I just think it's important to mention how genius Elon Musk is in PR. Like, he knew that it's gonna make a huge wave in the media and everything, and now everybody obviously talking about it. And Tesla is in focus, SpaceX. It's just amazing to see how every time he comes with a new plan to promote himself and his companies.
Well, in this case, he's promoted the Republican vote, and he wants Trump elected because he believes that if Trump isn't elected, then this will be the last election. Whether that's true or not, I don't know, but that's what he seems to believe. So he's trying very hard to get Trump elected. And also, one second, let's stay on mute. Thank you. Also, what was I going to say? I don't think this is a thing about PR, Eli. I think this is more about, I mean, in part PR, yes, but I think it's also about Elon creates incentives for people to do what he wants them to do. He's very good at that. And this is a huge incentive. You get $100 if you sign the pledge. You get a shot at $1 million every day gifted to one random person. And so I've seen far left people consider signing the pledge and even sign the pledge. So clearly having a huge impact. And how much is it costing him, right? I guess this is through the super PAC, like someone mentioned earlier. But I think majority of the money to the super PAC is coming from Elon, as I understand it, although I don't know that for a fact. And he's basically doing $1 million a day, so tens of millions of dollars, probably far less than what it would have cost to have this kind of material impact if you were going through traditional TV ads kind of thing. So the guy is just incredible at creating an incentive structure and getting it done at a cost that's much cheaper than what traditional channels would dictate. I mean, we've seen many examples of this in Tesla as well. When people are kind of screaming about TV ads, radio ads, etc., and he's kind of just one tweet and he gets tens of millions of views. And he says something and it covered across the mainstream media. Literally one of the most popular people in the world. So done at basically zero cost of ads and marketing. Let's go to John. John.
Yeah, I 100% agree with everything you said. I think what's interesting about this time is, if you look back into 2022 when he acquired Twitter, I can tell you right now, because we met with him when we interviewed him in May of 2022 when the acquisition had been announced. We did talk a little bit briefly in our interview, but all I'm going to say is I can tell you right now, Elon he's one of those guys. He doesn't start the fight. He loves to finish it. And the Biden administration, again, this is not even political. However you look at it, they have screwed him over time and time over again, specifically the Democrats. When he was in their corner with these electric vehicles, they overlooked him. I mean, look at the mainstream media. They just constantly attacked him, and that's not completely the Biden administration. But either way, he has every reason to literally hate the previous or the current administration and potentially the future one. So that is why he, even outside of his political views, that's why he's, going to jump all in this other direction. And, when you think of 2022, I can tell you right now, he was probably thinking like, okay, what's the best way to get certain messages out, to promote things? And that's why he acquired Twitter. I mean, that's not the only reason. There's obviously he loved it and a bunch of other reasons. But it's just one of those things where Elon he's a chess player. He doesn't play checkers. And, even probably with this whole election, he was thinking about when is the right time to come out and support and really, probably help sway the decision to essentially get past the Democrats, right?
Exactly.
And so that's why I think in when he got shot, when Trump got, the assassination attempt, that's when he came all out. Now, if Biden had kept running, I don't think Elon would have had to get as involved because people already know that Biden is not mentally there. And so it would have probably been an easier defeat. But once Kamala did, and Harris and Waltz and whatever, that's when he decided to step in and then ramp it.
Yeah.
Right.
All right. Thank you very much. All right. Let's break it up a little bit. We have other hands as well. And I want to give a quick shout out to Wes Wallen in YouTube live chat for answering FSD questions live right now. So if politics is not your thing and you don't want to listen to this, or you can't do it in the same time on YouTube, what I really like about YouTube live chat is that sometimes you get the deeper conversations going on in live chat that are completely unrelated to what we're talking about here, but it's still productive and valuable for the audience. So I really appreciate Wes for doing that. We're going to continue with this topic for a little bit, and then I'm going to take some of the questions and answers from there. There's a lot going on live chat right now. Dallas?
Yeah, while we're on the topic of the mainstream media political side of things, did you find it interesting or surprising that YouTube kind of stopped platforming the Trump interview, or was that something you totally expected to see?
Is this question for me?
Yeah, for you, or I
Yeah.
guess for anyone.
I'm not paying too much attention to it, honestly. This conversation is kind of, I think, temporary. I don't think it's that important. I think Omar is right. Whether Trump is elected or Harris is elected, I think Tesla and SpaceX will achieve what they achieve. The timeline may lag a little bit if there's overregulation, obviously. I have questions around what Trump can do, even as a president, to reduce overregulation, unless if there is a red sweep. But then that has its own kind of can of worms. So I'm more focused on the technology side of things. Like I wish right now I wasn't hosting it, I could be part of the YouTube live chat. So, but we're gonna get there. Nick?
Yeah, I think that that's definitely some concern there that YouTube would do that. Am I surprised? Frankly, not, with what we've seen for censorship with them over the years, and frankly, they have um, uh, a lot of times they will do that and not tell you from other people that have been not demonetized, but have had their reach reduced. It is interesting, though, that YouTube would do it at this time right now. And with that interview that Rogan and Trump had, I didn't see anything in there why they would want to do that. There was nothing in there very harmful. So, in my opinion, that should not have happened. And they were very careful not to put certain topics on there or not to, yeah. So, that's my opinion.
Thank you. Bull 2035.
Oh, so much misinformation, guys. Come on. Joe Rogan tweeted out on October 25th that there is no issue with YouTube censoring the Trump episode. Joe Rogan on his own X account said that it was a Spotify issue, that it was just a error on a computer error. So it's not a conspiracy. He said it himself.
Yeah. So during moments like this, part of the reason why I don't pay too much attention to these things is because there's a lot of misinformation. And right now, I don't even know who's right. Right? To know who's right now, I would have to look at the laws, the regulations that YouTube has, and exactly what happened. And that process takes a long time. But things happen live and real time. So I'm glad that we have Bull 2035 on the speaker board to provide some balance. We have Nick, who follows these things outside of mainstream media at a very close range. We have Dallas as well to bring up the issue in the first place, and others who can contribute to the conversation. Let's continue with this for 5 more minutes, and then we're going to switch topics. Brandon.
Yeah, I will just say I'm not sure who was just speaking. I hate the word misinformation, especially when people are like, "This is misinformation," and what they're saying is not true. Yeah, that was a separate issue. The new issue is that when you're searching it on YouTube, the video was not coming up. So he did remove it for a little bit because there was an issue with an upload to Spotify. Then the next day, because of whatever reason YouTube has, you can't search for the video on YouTube unless you go directly to the channel or click the link. So that's two totally separate things. Also, this
And
is
that's
like like Yaman
Now, hold on.
says,
It's very important that we stick to the hands mode because, like I mentioned in his previous spaces, in every morning I get an analysis of what was said by each person. The only way ChatGPT knows who said what is because I announced their name. And so please stick to the rule of raising your hand and waiting for your turn for me to call on you. Brandon, finish your thought.
I was just gonna say, I mean, all this stuff is, I guess, Yaman, I kind of agree with you. It's just super unimportant stuff that's just day to day. Like none of it's ever gonna matter.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, Bull 2035. What do you think about Brandon's point that even though Spotify had an issue that was fixed, but next day YouTube reduced the visibility of this video?
Yeah, well, Rogan tweeted out yesterday that they uploaded the video in its entirety, and there's been no reports of problems since then. So, what I don't like is when people jump to conspiracy theories and all these ridiculous terms. Let's focus on the facts. And as of now, it's searchable. Rogan tweeted out yesterday they upload the whole video again. There's no evidence that this is some conspiracy, guys. Come on.
Okay. Nick, Bull 2035 says, this is not a conspiracy. Let's focus on the facts. And I agree that we should focus on the facts. Nick, it does make you think, though, doesn't it?
It makes you think. And so I'm going to use some facts here. I just searched, went to YouTube, searched Rogan Trump, and it's still not showing up. And I used the wrong terminology. I'm sorry. I said censorship, but that's what I meant was like the reach or the visibility. But however, when I do go to YouTube, I search Rogan Trump, that interview does not pop up. So YouTube did come out with a tweet the other day and did mention that there was a glitch, and they said it was corrected at the beginning of the day. I believe that if that was yesterday or the day prior, I think it was yesterday. However, when I go and search it, it's still not coming up, and it's got 30 plus million views. It should be the first thing that pops up. So I rest my case.
Bull 2035, let's hear from you since you're the kind of only one right now on that side.
Yeah, guys, again, if you search Rogan Trump, that's as broad as you're going to get. If you simply type Rogan Trump interview, it's at the very top right there. I just did it. Rogan Trump interview. And if you do Rogan Trump, you'll eventually find it. It's just this is not a conspiracy. This is silly season. I get that. But come on, let's stick to the facts.
Okay. Now, Brian says in YouTube live chat, okay, Bull 2035, listen to this. In capital letters, wrong. And then he says, it was never trending live. Come on, Bull. It's been fixed, but it was not working. So that's Brian's contribution there. All right. I don't want to go back and forth on this. I'm sure there's some truth to both sides here. And the fact of the matter is this, like, whether YouTube kind of, Rule 25, let me ask you straight. Do you think YouTube at any point, since this video was published, reduced the visibility of this video? Yes or no?
Well, I have to go by evidence. There's no evidence of this. And I'm quite frankly sure if the Republicans keep the House, they'll do a hearing on it and then we'll find out. But I don't like to make accusations without evidence.
Okay. Brandon?
Yeah, I want to get off this topic too, but I would just like to say that I posted this conspiracy theory that YouTube has been hiding this video in the link in this space, posted by Joe Rogan, his own tweet. So Joe Rogan is now pushing the conspiracy that his video is being censored. Also, I just looked up the video yesterday and I just did it right now, and I still don't see it. So not a conspiracy theory.
Okay.
Very true.
Well, Ethan's okay. All right. We're going to wait for evidence. We're going to wait for the House or Senate committees to kind of look into this at some point. I'm sure it'll happen. John?
Yeah, I just want to say whatever we may be thinking, either way, Joe Rogan posted it to X because of whatever was happening, which is abnormal for him to do. So that was 13 hours ago. He posted it, and it's here. Elon was promoting it. It has 8 million views on X, but there's a reason why he posted it here. He never typically posts all of his interviews here.
That's a good point, Bull 2035. Joe Rogan kind of went out of his way to upload this interview on X.
Exactly.
It's 3 hours. And then if you upload any long-form video on X, that takes a lot of work. So he went out of his way to upload this thing. And but obviously that's not conclusive evidence, but still it's an indication. All right. There's a lot going on in YouTube live chat, and I don't want to miss this. Most importantly, Drew Soul just tipped $5, and here's what he says. If a Cybertruck is in wade mode, who's our Cybertruck expert here? Nick. If a Cybertruck is in wade mode and you initiate the fart sound, does it bubble?
Oh, that is a tough one because I have not taken my Cybertruck as a boat yet. So I do not have factual evidence of whether that happens or not.
Okay, cool. Sounds good. Thank you very much for sharing your expert opinion on fart sounds. All right. John, what else is on your mind these days? Did Omar send you because he couldn't make it? Is he sleeping? And he texted you and you should join this. He did, didn't he? I saw that laugh. John, do you have a Cybertruck?
Yes, I do. VIN, what, 1397?
Nice. How you liking it?
It's been amazing. It's had its issues, but overall, it's been an amazing truck. I've had a couple trucks before this, and by far, it's the best truck that I've ever owned.
All right, great. And then you tried FSD on it?
Yeah, so I've taken the Cybertruck. So first off, the first iteration of FSD 1255 in the Cybertruck was amazing. It was a lot better than I expected the first iteration to be. I thought, especially because it's a new vehicle, there's going to be, some quirks with it. But I took it up to San Francisco, where you have some pretty crazy scenarios like insane inclines, people in the middle of the road, walking in the middle of the road, and it did really, really well. So I've been a huge fan of it so far. It's done really well. I did test it out yesterday on the latest version, 12552, and there was a couple of more disengagements. So it kind of felt like a small regression, but overall, it's just to finally have the truck with FSD has been a game changer because I put 15,000 miles on it driving myself, and that was painful.
Do you think Cybertruck will overtake F-150? Not the Lightning, obviously that's already done. Overall sales of the F-150 at some point in the future.
I think it's definitely possible, especially in the fleet business. I do know Ford is highly focused. I met with Jim Farley back in August. They're hyper focused on their B2B. So that's like their bread and butter and where they make the most money for their business. So they're hyper focused on that. They have a big group of engineers who meet regularly with their customers. So they're definitely focused on their fleet business more than even the consumer, to be honest. And my opinion is that, as more people compare, let's say, the Lightning and the Cybertruck, is just going to be a clear indication that you should just get a Cybertruck. So I definitely think I think the bigger issue is more of, is Tesla going to put the energy in to focus on the fleet business, or are they going to be more focused on the consumer? Because that's it's just about resourcing, in my opinion, on that.
I understand. Thank you very much. All right. Let's read some of the comments. There's some knowledge being dropped in YouTube live chat right now on FSD, and honestly, I don't want to miss it. So let's go through these real quick. Let's see if there's a good question, good answer, and maybe if Wes is listening still, he can point out one of the great questions, better questions, and we can read that too. And Russellton, you were part of those conversations, right? And you asked the question. Russellton asks, West Walton, what percentage do we apply reverse park on park by 1031? West said 70% as it was published by the Tesla AI team. What does he mean by that, Russellton?
I think he's because it was on the roadmap. He's just giving it a 70% chance. Everybody's got the meme where he's wiping he's driving the thing and he's wiping the sweat off his brow.
Oh, I
Coming
see.
down to the wire, he gives it 70%. I hope so. I'm looking forward to Omar and everybody else in the early program getting it.
Yeah. Well, I don't think we haven't yet heard of any rumors that's being rolled out to the internal team just yet. So Steve asks, do you ever see an FSD application for a real-time mind hive of connected fleet data? Or do that's unnecessary, not valuable? FSD application for real-time mind hive of connected fleet data. Or is that unnecessary, not valuable? Thinking accident traffic, intelligent routing. Good. I mean, I think they do some of that already to some extent. Wes says, we discussed this at length and it does not have value once FSD is generally solved. Until then, the value is high, but the cost is also high. Okay. I think they do some, traffic-wise, heavy traffic, right? That was my understanding. John, do you know anything about that?
Sorry, you kind of cut out there. What was it?
That's all right. We can get back to that. Nick?
good ideas are always crazy until they're not.
What is
Elon
going on?
Musk.
Oh, thank you. Okay, I got you. I was like, where does that come from? All right. Thank you, Nick, for sharing your favorite quote of the day by Elon per the request of our third sponsor. Wes says it's better to solve FSD as spending time on anything else slows down engineering. Okay. Candleman asks, can you help me understand why when using FSD on the highway in Georgia, the car has had a hard time understanding speed limit versus minimum speed limit signs? Wes says, yeah, I bet that minimum speed limit times are essentially ignored, but I don't have experience with those in my state. Makes sense. So, Sultan, did you come across any good questions over there about FSD, insightful questions that led to maybe something that you didn't know before?
No, everything is pretty ho hum over there. You covered most of it. The speed limit one was really, really interesting. I don't have that in my state either, but it'd be interesting to
They
start
have
when
it. They have it in Istanbul.
they
You
do.
have you have a maximum speed limit and a minimum speed limit on the highways. And West says they're probably not training on the minimum speed limits. That makes sense.
Hacks.
All right. If you have any more FSD related questions, you can head over to YouTube live chat and ask Wes your specific question. Wes used to work at Tesla on the autopilot team as a product manager. He says, I drive the Cybertruck every day through 8 active school zones. This is my biggest missing feature. What is cool is that, okay. Okay. Okay, cool. Dallas.
Yes, on the school zone thing, I actually changed a setting in my autopilot settings because of the school zone issue. So now I turned off auto speed for FSD. So then when I come up to a school zone, I just dial it down to 20. It seems to be the best band-aid kind of on a bullet hole for now.
I think this one is an issue of you want the reliability to be extremely high if you're going to communicate to your customer that you can handle these situations. Like you can't roll out a 90% reliability and then use the data to get to 99, then 99.99, etc. With school zones, the downside is huge, obviously. So you want to make sure you start off at a very high reliability. And same with emergency vehicle, reacting emergency vehicles, etc. Okay. Samir Shah.
Hey, good afternoon, Yaman. Thanks for having me on the speaker board. My question is on hardware 4. I wanted to know, first of all, I have an assumption. On the FSD hardware 3, there is a redundant computer that if the first main computer fails, it falls to the secondary inference device to take over the FSD to mitigate any safety issues. If hardware 4 has more computation, why does not Tesla use this redundant computation for hardware 3 to support the additional inference computation needs in order to further enhance the performance of hardware 3 hardware?
Why doesn't Tesla use hardware 4 to improve hardware 3? Is that what you said?
No, why doesn't Tesla use the redundant hardware 3 computer, which is sitting on the.
Well, where did you get the idea that it's redundant?
So is that a false assumption?
Well, I think that was the plan early on back in 2019. I think they wanted to have 2 of these chips on hardware 3. But then we've heard some speculation in these spaces that they may be using both of the chips to run the neural network models. So I don't know if that's necessarily a correct assumption at this point.
Okay, sounds good. Thanks.
Does anyone have another opinion on that topic on the speaker board? Okay. And if anyone on YouTube live chat, maybe Wes can let us know in YouTube live chat whether he agrees with my answer on that front. Alexander, are you able to talk about Volkswagen now?
Yeah, sure.
All right. So what's going on? Let's switch topics. But before that, let me read a quick ad for our sponsors. And please take the time to head over to the top of your screens, click over to the YouTube channel, and hit like and subscribe. We're at 123 likes. We're trying to get to 1,000 likes per episode. It is a great help for us because it introduces the channel, the episode that gets the most likes, to newer viewers, which then subscribe, which then impact ad revenue per episode. So it's your help is greatly important. Even if you're listening on X, head over to YouTube channel, hit that like button as I read these sponsor ads. Tesla Live is proudly sponsored by Paymore, your trusted destination for buying, selling, trading, and recycling electronics. And today, after this space ends, I'm going to head over to a Paymore location to turn in my MacBook Air from 2020, and they're going to give me a MacBook Pro from 2023 so that I don't have to put ice on my computer. So thank you very much for those of you who followed the call to action to follow the Paymore accounts and hit their goal of 100 followers. I appreciate Tesla Live listeners supporting this space and our sponsors. And Tesla Live is proudly sponsored by Jowa, your go-to source for premium Tesla accessories. At Jowa, you'll find innovative charging solutions, stylish interior upgrades, protective gear, and cutting-edge tech add-ons. Use promo code TSLA Live at checkout to receive a special discount on your next purchase. Thank you, Jowa and Paymore, for supporting Tesla Live and the Tesla community. All right, Alexander, let's switch gears to traditional automakers. Volkswagen is having some troubles. There were a lot of headlines yesterday. What do you have for us?
Yeah, so Volkswagen announced yesterday that they may have to close down 3 factories in Germany. And this is historically because they've never shut down a factory before, ever, in Germany. So saying that they're going to close down 3 factories is really huge. They are the heart of German economy. So they have lost about 5% in the two first quarters of this year of the EV market. So they lost 5% of that market. Obviously, there's a high pressure from Chinese competitors in that market in Germany, all over Europe as well. They need to save 4 billion euros. And they have about 300,000 employees in Germany. So this will affect tens of thousands of people directly in Volkswagen brand. So, and
So you're,
Audi.
you're saying tens of thousands of people at Volkswagen will be laid off. What's the time frame on that?
They haven't said any time frame, but because the union IG Metall is obviously fighting this, because Volkswagen made a deal many years ago with this union that they're not going to lay off any people in Germany. So the union is threatening to start strikes all around the country now. And Volkswagen also want to lower salaries by 10%.
Yeah, lower salaries 10% this year, and then 0% next year, 0% next year in salary growth. So obviously it's a big deal. And as Alexander mentioned, the union is threatening strikes across the country, across factories. And my understanding, Alexander, is this correct? My understanding is that the city and plus the unions have more, they have enough shares that Volkswagen can't do. They don't have a controlling position to stop any of this. Like this can really spiral down and end up bankrupting the company. What do you think?
Yeah, the state of Niedersachsen actually owns 20% of Volkswagen. So the government is not happy, I guess.
Yeah. And then so that's 20% for the city. And then can you look up the other large equity holders while Ellie talks? Ellie?
Thank you. So, Alexander, just a quick question. If I remember correctly, they were talking about some other countries in Europe. Is it the same case in the other countries with the unions?
I don't know. Obviously, the biggest factories are in Germany, but there's a lot of companies in the Volkswagen Group all over Europe.
Okay, thank you, Alexander. And then maybe Alexander later on can tell us what the equity structure is so that we can better understand. So is the city almost 20%? They obviously want production to increase. Like, for example, I was watching another kind of news compilation video about the traditional automakers. Italy is trying to force Stellantis to increase production to 1 million units in the country. But Stellantis doesn't have the demand for those vehicles. So they're going to produce about 500,000 at best. So what that means is the country, some of these countries and labor unions and the companies, equity holders have kind of opposing interests here that leads to weird outcomes. And that's kind of makes them structurally uncompetitive with Tesla and companies who don't have these competing stakeholders. Alexander?
Yeah, and Audi also announced, Audi is a part of Volkswagen Group, that they are going to shut down a factory with 3,000 employees in Brussels in the beginning of 2025.
Yeah. And my understanding is that many of these, like Porsche, Volkswagen, Mercedes, are announcing heavy drops in their income. Ford, for example, and that's the European automakers are losing market share in China. And Ford also announced earnings yesterday. And even though they beat on the top line and the bottom line, Ford stock is down materially today to about $10 per share. Let me just check what it is right now. Ford stock is down 9% from 1140 to 1040. So that's about a $4 billion loss in the market cap. They're about a $41 billion market cap now. And that's in part due to they revised their guidance down for this year. So Ford revised guidance down. They blamed EVs. They lost more than $1 billion in Q3 on selling pure EVs. They said we're doing well on hybrids. But I caution everybody to take that with a grain of salt, because especially in the quarterly earnings, is JC here? Okay, audit partner is not here right now, but I used to work in audit. And in quarterly earnings, the segment results are not audited. Even the quarterly earnings overall are not really audited at all. And there might be a review by the auditor, but that's very kind of couple of days kind of thing, rather than this multi-month of audit of annual results. So when Ford says we made money in our Pro division and we lost money in our EV division, that you're taking management's word 100% there. There's no review of that departmental allocation. Okay, departmental expense allocation. And it's very easy to manipulate. So for example, you can say, just one example is, let's say your CEO is getting paid $20 million. Okay. You can argue that the CEO spent 75% of his time in the EV division, dealing with EVs, even though that may not be reality, and 25% in the North American division or dealing with some international division, and basically show what you want the segment results to show very easily. And they say it in the segment results page. Below that in fine print, you'll see these results are not audited, because they have to say that. Even in the annual results, the segment results are not audited. Okay, so you really be careful about what these segment results are showing. Because it's part of telling a story by these managements. So whatever your goal is, whether you're trying to raise capital for a specific segment or you believe that Wall Street analysts care about this segment and not the other segment, then you kind of move expense around a little bit. Alexander.
Yeah, and this is not just going to hit Volkswagen. I mean, there's so many subcontractors, people that work with Volkswagen that is not mentioned here. I mean, all the machine builders, people that make the automation solutions, everybody is going to get affected. We had an open house event at my company last week, and we had some suppliers there from Germany, and they said like the whole economy is standing still right now. There's no new investments in anything, pretty much.
Thank you, Alexander. We have a great reply from Ethan DeVry, who asked Grok about the question I just had. Volkswagen largest equity holdings. Porsche Automotive Holding own 53% of the voting rights. The state of Lower Saxony owns 20%, as Alexander mentioned. Qatar Holding LLC owns 17%. The rest, about 9.7%, is what you call free float. Interesting. So Porsche does have controlling stake here, 53%. Alexander, what do you think is going to happen here? What do you think is going to be the outcome with Volkswagen?
I think this will hurt European economy overall. Obviously, all the countries around Germany will be affected by this. The whole industry will be affected. Sweden hasn't actually been affected that greatly yet. We don't see a lowering in the demand yet, but I bet that will come. So this will have consequences for a long, long time. If Europe doesn't settle for something to make something else, this will be a huge problem.
Because, okay, but now yeah. I need specifics. So, for example, Wes Wallen in YouTube Live Chat asks, "What is the first plant to be closed and when? Has this been announced?"
No.
Okay, so they have plans to close plants, but we don't really have yet concrete details from Volkswagen share just yet. They're still probably trying to figure it out with all the competing stakeholders they have. Alexander, so Volkswagen obviously is very important to the German economy, which is already struggling. Do you see this becoming a major problem in the next 12 months to the point where the German government has to step in?
Actually, they held a meeting today with Gustav Scholz, I think. Olaf Scholz, the Chancellor of Germany, held a meeting with all the major German companies. And they demanded lower energy prices and so on. And they actually shot themselves in the ass because they closed down all the nuclear plants in Germany a couple of years ago, which is like, I can't even understand that kind of thinking. That's just terrible decision making.
Okay. All right, Alexander, thank you very much. And please keep us posted on any sort of details that come out. I'm really interested in this topic because I think this is not going to be just a Volkswagen story. I think we're going to see similar issues bubbling up with Stellantis, with some of the other German automakers, and obviously impacts Tesla's market share and the future as well. So it's important to keep an eye on this stuff. Alexander?
Yeah, one more interesting fact. I said they want to save 4 billion euros, and that's the exact amount they want to give to Rivian. So I don't see how they can save 4 billion euros at the same time as they give 4 billion euros to yeah, it's just mind-boggling.
Yeah, but on the other hand, obviously the 4 billion they're trying to save is on the expense side, and the 4 billion they want to give to Rivian is cash on the balance sheet. So they're not necessarily the same thing. So I guess you're implying that the deal with Rivian is going to fall through. How confident are you in that?
I'm not confident in that. How can they kick 19,000 people or 20,000 or 30,000? We don't know, but there's going to be tens of thousands of people without a job, and then you give the Americans 4 billion euros. So like that's not going to sit right with anyone in Europe.
So you believe that in part, as a part of negotiations, the Rivian deal will be one of the things that Volkswagen cuts off?
Yeah, I mean, how can Volkswagen go to the government to say, like, we need support, but we also need to give $4 billion to the Americans? Like, no, that won't happen.
But to argue the other side, to push back a little bit, one could argue Volkswagen knew that these things were coming about a month or two ago when they made the deal with Rivian. So were they kind of preparing for this negotiation battle and say, okay, here's a card that we can play later on as a cost cutting measure?
Maybe this is all just politics. We don't know. Maybe they just say this stuff to be able to lower salaries and stuff to be more profitable. I don't know.
Interesting. Okay, Ellie?
I'm not sure if I'm going to ask the same question you just asked, so I'm just going to go with it. Alexander, the same topic on Rivian and the money that they're about to invest. Isn't like a good thing to say that we invest money in some foreign technology so we can move the company forward?
Yeah, sure. But I mean, yeah, maybe.
Alexa, I love the question, Ellie. Thank you very much. I think that's a really good one. Although I think maybe the answer to that is a bit more, that's a longer term investment in Volkswagen's future. But if the house is on fire, then you don't really worry about upgrading the kitchen. Drew Soul asks, who would be the first automotive company to jump on board Tesla's electrical connection standards? So Drew is referring to who's got the details on this? Anybody on the speaker board? Okay. Tech Greg, do you have a question?
I was just going to make a statement about the Volkswagen deal, and is that they had to take those billions of dollars and invest them in an American company because they couldn't take those same resources, invest it in themselves, and come up with the tech on their own. And now they're having to fire all these people because they can't sell enough of their own product. And it's too bad that they have to do that. I mean, it's great that they're reaching out to try to increase the potential market in EVs, but they can't even do it in their own. And it's too bad that it's hurting their own people in order to grow their own company. I thought that was a very interesting fact to look at it that way.
Thank you, Tech Greg. All right. So the question that Drew asks relates to an article from yesterday, news from yesterday. Teslarati published. Tesla launches low voltage connector standard to simplify EV transition. So just like Tesla, introduced a NACS standard for charging, Tesla is now trying to get a second standard implemented across all automakers called the low voltage connector standard. Tesla has, so I'm going to read a couple of paragraphs and I'm going to Ellie after that. Tesla has officially launched a new standard for the low voltage connections in EVs, which the company says will reduce necessary connection types in most EVs from over 200 to just 6. Okay, so over 200 to 6. So that's I guess that's a 97% drop in necessary connection types. Okay, so that's the Tesla difference. Tesla versus traditional makers, over 200 to 6. In a post on its blog on Monday, Tesla officially launched the Low Voltage Connector Standard, LVCS, which is a group of 6 standardized EV connectors meant to simplify the manufacturing of EVs and help accelerate the world transition to sustainable energy. Tesla says the connectors were designed with power and signal requirements for more than 90% of typical connections, offering the ability to increase operational efficiency, reduce manufacturing costs, and increase the potential for manufacturing automation. In addition, Tesla writes that the LVCS suite was designed upon the 48-volt architecture built into the Cybertruck, meeting certain requirements for spacing for 48-volt operation. The company notes that the 48-volt architecture requires just a quarter of the current to deliver the same amount of power as commonly used 12-volt systems. Okay, there's more in this article. You can go ahead and read the blog post by Tesla itself. If you have any questions, or comments, please drop it in the live chat. There's somebody, before I go to Ellie, Catch Penny UK says, Yaman, 200 total connections, not unique connections. Okay, so he's saying the Tesla ID statement is wrong. This is the connection types. So let's look at the blog right here. We can do fact checking live. We'll do it live. Okay. Tesla, over the last 20 years, the cost and complexity of electronics across the automotive industry has doubled. Today, a single vehicle typically requires over 200 connections, and the number of electrical connectors and types across new vehicles is only increasing. To accelerate the world's transition to energy, we're simplifying the manufacturing process and electrical connectivity requirements for all our vehicles. This includes the implementation of our low voltage connector standard, which allows us to reduce the large number of connected types required to just 6. These 6 device connectors are designed to meet the power and signal requirements for over 90% of typical electric device applications. Okay. To be honest with you, what Catchpin UK said is more correct than what the Tesla ID article says. So thank you very much for correcting that live. And Wes Walden also says correct. So Wes used to work at Tesla. This is great. Very good. Catchpin UK, you are now, I'm going to make you a moderator after that performance here. See, add as moderator. Great. Congratulations. That's how you get on the board. Okay. Ellie?
I changed my mind. Thank you.
Okay. Hustle Town.
No, you answered all of that. I thought that's what it was going to be, but you answered everything pretty good.
Okay, great. We have a bunch of other topics we can discuss here. We talked about Ford. We talked about VW. We talk about Elon potentially taking a government role. The voices around Elon's role at Tesla being reduced if he takes a government role is pretty high, actually. So I'm curious about your thoughts on what you think. I mean, this is obviously a huge topic for Tesla. I don't think it would be a huge issue, but there's enough number of people who think it would be that we can probably discuss this a little bit more. I pinned at the top of our screens a thumbs up or thumbs down question. Will Elon leave Tesla if he joins the government? Okay. Let me know in the YouTube live chat what you think about this as well. Wesley Crusher, in a reply to the tweet at the top, says, he may change roles, but I believe he will always be a presence no matter what. It's his baby other than SpaceX. Daniel says, no need. As step 1, he can just ask the whole list of agencies and figure out the ones that are safe to delete. Okay. Lots of no's in the replies, but there's a bunch of yeses as well. Matt said he already said he won't take a government position. He might be an advisor. Okay. Yesterday night says, no fucking way. Larry is dead wrong. Yeah, this tweet, this rather came from Larry Goldberg, but okay, I mean, all the people that I see in the replies here that I've known for a while disagrees with this. So, okay, great. Let's bring in Luce, one of our skeptics. Doge Nation in YouTube live chat says Tesla Larry is completely wrong. No chance in hell that Elon leaves his companies to take a government position. He will simply be an advisor to Trump. Okay, Ellie.
Thanks. Just a few points. So, I mean, a lot of times we hear people getting nervous around this subject if Elon is about to leave because he's more busy with something else, like when he bought X or Twitter. Now, as X. And also, I mean, I'm not sure you might correct me, but he said, I already have 16 jobs. I don't need a 17 one. So he kind of said it himself. So the first people to respond and to jump on the gun on this subject is the analysts, because they, just nervous about this topic. They don't want to see Tesla drop and all that. So I think it's a big no, and that's my take.
Thank you, Ellie. And Wes Wallen says Elon, even if he left as CEO, his role as CEO ended. He says Elon would stay on as a board member in the limit. Also, as AI takes over the company, Wes imagines that Ashok will continue to move into more of an overall leadership role. Okay, it's probably a few years down the line. Luce,
Hey, what's up, everybody? So, I don't think really there is any risk of Elon leaving Tesla CEO position or leaving any of his company position as CEO, really. So basically, Elon built his entire life around these companies, and they are performing as well as they do only thanks to Elon. And to think that right now, because he has a government position, he's gonna leave. I mean, it's really not possible in my opinion. So another thing is that sorry, I forget. Sorry. Thanks for letting me
that's
speak.
okay. It happens to the best of us. When you remember, you can just raise your hands and we can continue. I'm going to open up a debate question right now, and I would like everyone to participate in this debate. Okay, so use your imagination, deep thinking skills, and everything you know about Tesla to answer the question. I'm going to pin the question at the top of our screens. Here's the question at the top. Okay, it's a general question, but it's an important one. The question is, what's one challenge that you think Tesla is overlooking that could become a major hurdle in the next few years? What's one question that Tesla is overlooking that could become a major hurdle in the next few years? Who wants to start? Nick, thank you for raising your hand.
Can you repeat the question, please?
What's one challenge you think Tesla's overlooking that could become a major hurdle in the next few years?
Yeah, that's a tough one. I think it's going to be the insurance part of the business, in my opinion. The insurance part is, multi-billion-dollar industry, and you could see this year. I don't know. A lot of people probably have felt it, but the insurance prices have just gone extremely high. So I think that part initially is going, and perhaps that's why it's been so slow. So that's my answer.
Okay, so Nick says a risk to Tesla investors and Tesla company in the next few years is surging insurance prices. Noted. Thank you. Ellie.
Just for the sake of the debate, because I don't think a lot about what could go wrong. I believe in the company. The self-driving, the robotaxi, whatever you want to call it, the fact that people can attack the car when there's no driver, just passenger in the seat, and basically maybe you can stop the car by just standing in the street, waving your arms, and then the car is vulnerable to attacks. So it's either they damage the car and the insurance goes high, or you just an easy target sitting in the street.
Okay, so Ellie says basically social acceptance of robotaxis and maybe even Optimus. Robotaxis, driverless cars being attacked, and we've seen many examples of that, whether it's Waymo, Cruise, and multiple cities. So it's definitely a risk. Thank you, Ellie, for pointing this out. Now, the question, again, at the top of our screens. I would like every listener on X to reply to this space. Let me know what they think. What's one challenge you think Tesla's overlooking that could become a major hurdle in the next few years? And if you're listening, watching on YouTube, drop your answer in YouTube live chat. What's one challenge you think Tesla's overlooking that could become a major hurdle? And I'm going to show this question on YouTube as well, on the right side of your screens, right there. So you have the question right in front of you. Okay. Let me know in the replies in live chat, and if you're watching the replay, in the comments below the video, because this will inform, your answers will inform what we should talk about in coming episodes. So it's very important that you participate in this challenge. Currently, we have 152 likes on YouTube. Hit that like button and subscribe. Help us get there, everybody. We're trying to get to 1,000 likes per episode. Okay. Nick took his time, thought of an answer, probably talked to Grok, and then came up and now he's raising his hand. But it's too late. We have other hands, so we're going to go to them first. Actually, Nick has a baby, so let's go to him. He's probably ready to talk.
Thank you, Yaman. Yeah, so I think cash flow with the amount that they're going to be investing in AI right now in the chips and building up the supercomputer. I think cash flow is going to be a concern.
Okay, so Nick says despite the $30+ billion in cash flow might be a concern. And I think that's a good thought, Nick. If you were seeing Microsoft, Amazon, Meta, and others invest tens of billions of dollars into building their supercomputers, GPU clusters, and Tesla is not in a position to do that right now. Elon is being a bit more careful about building out the AI compute capability. And obviously, the automotive business has seen declining margins. The FSD take rate hasn't increased as quickly as I had imagined in previous years. So maybe that's part of it. But at the same time, Elon obviously has a keen eye on what costs need to accelerate, what can be throttled a little bit. So, I trust his judgment on that. Let's go to Bill 2035.
Well, some of the legacy automakers are counting on major battery, solid state battery, and other battery advancements. And if Tesla gets knocked out of that's what concerns me.
Thank you, Bull 2035. Trevor.
I would say it's charging infrastructure for these major cities, even out there in rural areas too. If they're going to be deploying, hundreds of thousands, ultimately millions of robotaxis, some of these cities, the infrastructures, they can't handle that. So Tesla's kind of thought of this a little bit with megapacks and solar. I think that's how they're going to solve it, but they're going to need to implement those solutions to charge all these robotaxis.
Okay, Trevor says the charging stations may not be there. All the charging station charging points are increasing, and the one, I did take my friend's Tesla for a weekend in Austin, and I've used the Tesla a bunch of times as well. And he has my profile on there, so when I come in, it's kind of like And one thing I learned is that every time I go to Target to grab even one item, before I can check out, the car is charged. So I don't think, I've come to the conclusion that the concerns about charging stations not being enough is way overblown, especially. And by the way, I was living in a multi, a high rise apartment building, not even there's not even charging at home situation. So it's so if that's not a problem in that case, if charging is not a problem, even when you're living in a high rise, with majority of the people in the US living in single family homes, I just don't think charging is as big of a bottleneck as people think it is. Trevor?
I guess I should have iterated so I guess the biggest problem is actually the grid, actually being able to charge, not maybe the charging stations themselves, but the grid being able to handle all these robotaxis and all this charging all at once.
You don't think megapacks on power walls and virtual power plants address that issue?
I do, but I just think that what are you going to release all these robotaxis and then install all the megapacks and stuff to deal with that? I think they need to get ahead of that and go ahead and start finding out locations they can put all these megapacks in, because that's going to take room and time.
Okay. Trevor says, if you upgrade the entire fleet of millions of vehicles with one software update to Robotaxi, the grid can't handle that demand surge in electricity. Town, what do you say to that?
Well, I think that it'll be a gradual process. I think they're handling that. I have a hard time believing that Tesla is overlooking any real challenges, with the exception of maybe getting the word out. I did a camping trip with my family, and because I went through the gradual process, Model 3, Model Y, and this is like the first time they've seen my Model X. And so my family, they're kind of country. They aren't truly exposed to it. We were out in the countryside using camp mode. And when he saw the things that the Tesla could do, because we're on private property, I'm demonstrating ass all over his property. Take that as you will, because we throw that ass in a circle over there. And he's amazed. He's like, I didn't know Tesla was like this. And, you can see all the videos of the artificial intelligence videos that aren't really true, but he's seeing it with his own eyes. He's in the vehicle. So if there's any one thing that they're overlooking, I think it might be advertising or getting the word out to people that just aren't in that Tesla circle. But even then, I don't think it's absolutely necessary to advertise. It just seems moot at this point with their volume production. All of this stuff will happen gradually. I just find it hard to believe that Tesla is overlooking anything.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you very much. And Wes Wallen says in YouTube live chat, Tesla might be overlooking going wide being an electric utility. Going wide being an electric utility. I'd like to see them buy and or create electric utilities faster, like the virtual power plant on ERCOT, but also purchasing a utility like PSE. Interesting. Maybe I'm going to take that down, and maybe we can talk about that later on. Does Tesla have to buy electric utility to accomplish its mission? I mean, Texas, they did become a utility. But man, it's taking long to install these megapacks. Hustle Town?
I was going to say I stand corrected. I would love to see them expand being a utility after being a user of Tesla Electric, but I imagine it's much like the insurance business, where that juice might not be worth the squeeze, given the current parameters that they have to deal with, even in the state of Texas, and then expanding it to other different states.
Thank you, Hustle Town. At some point in the future, let's talk about your experience using Tesla electricity. Luce?
So, in my opinion, the biggest challenge that Tesla is facing is the cost of their vehicles. For the simple fact that I'm not really positive on how America is going, Europe is going, and China itself. It seems to me that the global economy is not going in a good direction. And what really would accelerate Tesla in its mission is just having lower cost vehicles compared to their competition, which is something they are doing and which is something that the stock market really reacts to. But having a 20,000, 25,000 vehicle will really keep me at peace.
Luce, the fact is, you can't get a Model 3 these days in the teens. 2-3-year-old Model 3, less than $20,000. You can't get a Model. Hold on, Luce, hold on. Thank you. You can get a used Model Y in the low 20,000s. And next year, as the new Model Y rolls out, you're going to see the resale values and the used car prices on the Model Ys of old Model Ys will decline to where the Model 3s are today. So it's going to be about in the teens. So why would somebody buy a $25,000, $30,000 new Tesla that Tesla probably won't be making a lot of money on, just selling them if FSD take rates don't increase? Why would somebody buy a new Tesla if they can go with a used Tesla that's half the price and only 2 years old? So it's too early to produce this Tesla.
So the right thing to do would be to buy a new Tesla, and I agree on that. But the majority of people, at least in my family, on where I grow around, don't want to buy used car if they can. Like it's always like you are buying a discount product. Most of the time, you think it has like signs of aging. You really don't like that. You have to have a brand new product that is in line with a cheap pricing. That's my answer.
Tesla doesn't have right now, and Tesla has excess capacity, as does the entire automotive industry across the world. What is the point of bringing in yet another vehicle? FSD is near perfect,
So I
and
only
it's
hear
going
the
to
cheap stuff.
it's going to cut into your demand of the existing Model 3s and Model Ys.
Yeah, so the point is very simple. So at one point, if you make a cheap enough vehicles, people are going to buy it in mass. They are going to buy it, so many of them, that if the infrastructure, for example, cannot handle such amount of vehicles, it's not
Lucia,
only...
you're not addressing my question here.
Yeah,
The
sorry, I
question
didn't
is
hear
around
that.
the questions are profitability. I never said people want to buy it. Let's go to Alexander.
So
Yeah. Okay. Sorry, Lucia. One challenge I think Tesla will have is the regulatory hurdle for getting FSD approved abroad outside the US. And I actually think Ellie had a good point. I mean, when people know that the car is going to stop no matter what, you can just walk across the street and don't care. So I suggest 1% of Tesla cars will just keep on driving and hit people, so they will be more careful.
Thank you. Bull 2035.
Yeah, to Luce's point, I have complete confidence if Tesla needed to take 10,000 cogs out of these vehicles, they could. They could do it today if they wanted to. It's just not going to be profitable.
Yeah, I mean, this is very similar to how people always ask me to do spaces on the weekends, and they want to hold spaces when whenever they're available and they're ready, and increase the space time and go on for 3 hours, etc. But Tesla Live is not ready for that yet. You can't scale something if it's not profitable. You're going to bankrupt the company. Lucia, you should be the CEO of Rivian. Lucia?
So the profitability will come from will come from FSD and their services.
Okay, let's focus on that. Okay, so there we agree, which is when FSD take rate increases, you can sell a vehicle at cost and make your money on the software side. And Tesla has included that one sentence in the earnings reports quarter after quarter for more than a year now, that increasingly FSD and fleet services will play a major role in the company's bottom line. Okay, but the question for you is, at what FSD take rate do you have to see to scale that low cost $25,000-$30,000 vehicle so that you can make your money on the software side and you're not bankrupting the company that way? Just like once we get to 1,000 likes per episode, we'll have the ad revenue to add more labor hours to scale Tesla Live. But it doesn't make sense to scale Tesla Live until we get to 1,000 likes per episode. So what FSD take rate do you have to see to bring this new low-cost vehicle to production and scale it?
So I think the divergence is in the fact that I think the car has to come first and FSD will come in with time. For a simple fact that there are other limitations as well. As they said before me, there is the infrastructure that it's lacking. There is a general knowledge about electric vehicles and how cheap they are, how good they are, that is lacking. And having the majority of electric vehicles in the streets being electric would literally also solve those two problems. And for me, you first have the world switching to electric vehicles and solve all the problems around that. And FSD will come for sure, surely when it will.
Okay, so Lucia is making the argument that if you build it, they will come. But I think you're building not a field of dreams here. I don't know if you get that reference, but you're building a, I don't know, factory and then expecting baseball players to come, because really the FSD take rate doesn't really have much to do with the production numbers of the new vehicle. They're kind of independent from each other, and we're not seeing yet majority of the people buying or subscribing to FSD in the existing sexy vehicles that we have. So let's go to other opinions. Wessex.
Hey, Yaman. Yeah, I just throw something out there as far as something that could catch us off guard would be a platform change to VTOL. So let's say transportation changes in 10 years and some other companies get ahead of us in the VTOL space, meaning vertical takeoff and landing. That could be a pretty big concern. As long as we're in the automobile business, I think Tesla's going to be, top or in the top segment. I'm not really concerned about it, but a platform change, that could be an issue.
All right, thank you, Wessex. We're going to go to Lauren in a second. We're going to continue this conversation. Amy Serwinowski reminds me that we are running 167 likes currently, and says more likes equals happy Yaman, which is correct. I have actually measured my happiness with a happiness metric, and the more likes I get, the happier I am. And so if you want to make me happy, or if you want to support Tesla Live, the lowest cost thing you can do, whether it's money or time, is to hit that like button. And it helps us a lot. It is by far the most return on investment, because cost is about 2 seconds to do it. And the return to Tesla Live is huge. Helps us grow, pushes the episodes to new viewers, grows the channel, and we're going to get to 10,000 subscribers. So we're going to take a 30-second break, because sometimes people don't want to miss what's being discussed. 30-second break for you to head up to the top of your screens and hit that like button. Everybody on mute for 30 seconds. Don't like, you can like the tweet too, but what's more important is go to the YouTube channel through the link at the top of our screens and hit the like button on the YouTube video. Let's see if we can get to 200. Thank you, Amy, for reminding me. Nick.
So right now, we need everyone to go and hit the like. We have 216 people on here. I want to see 216 likes in the next 20 seconds. 216 is the number. Now we got 211, 211, 210 is the number. Let's hit 210 likes on YouTube video.
Thank you, Nick. I appreciate that. Nick was the top salesperson in a global company for their North America division. And you can see why, because he gets results. When Nick talks, we get dozens of likes within 10 seconds.
Let's go.
Thank you, Nick. I
And
appreciate it.
may I also share
Let's
something
go.
else?
Yes.
Yeah, another one of your sponsors, Jowa. I really appreciate their products and also their contest right now. If you have a Tesla and you haven't done this yet, you need to go into Beach Buggy 2 and try to get the top score. And they're giving away 3 big prizes, $500 gift card to Jowa if you get in the first place. And then there's also certificates for second and third as well. But it's a great contest, easy entry, and free to do.
Very good. And now we just hit 200 likes. Thank you very much, Nick, for making it happen. But let's continue with Lauren. And now we have Machine and Wes on the board as well. So we're going to continue with FSD autopilot type of conversation in the next half hour, in the final half hour we have. Lauren, go ahead.
Hey, so I liked the thing while we met or while we waited, but my biggest argument for not pursuing immediately a $25,000 car is I think it's a huge unappreciated risk if they can make the Robotaxi vision happen. it would end up in a situation where you spent, the next 2 years building production for this cheap car, but then all of a sudden there's no demand for it because the Robotaxi is actually a better product and is cheaper to produce because it doesn't have the pedals and steering wheel. And I think it's definitely they're on the right track, holding off for now on the cheaper car, which will be the Robotaxi. But if they invested a bunch of money in it now, it would just end up being wasted money with stranded factories.
Good perspective. Thank you, Lauren. Machine, welcome.
You're welcome.
Okay, good. And Machine, what have you done for Tesla Live in the last week? What have you accomplished?
Probably creating a lot of controversy and you having to delete the space yesterday. I know that's because of my comments, probably.
No, incorrect. The fact is we need to grow Tesla Live on YouTube to 10,000 subscribers so it can, it's a hustle right now. We're hustling to get to 10,000 subs in the next couple of months here. The goal is by year end. And once we do that, Tesla Live will grow on its own on YouTube. And I'm going to start publishing videos of Tesla Live spaces on X as well. We just have to first rally around Tesla Live. Everyone on X need to rally around Tesla Live, head over to YouTube, hit like and subscribe and share the video so we can get to 10,000 subs ASAP. And I'm sorry to do this, but I need to delete the recordings on X so that people watch the recording on YouTube for now. And I know that it, inconveniences some people in the near term. I hate that, but it's a near-term pain that is kind of necessary right now. Okay. Wes has been all day on YouTube live chat responding to questions from everybody one by one on FSD, contributing 100 times more than Machine has today. Machine doesn't even understand this strategy of Tesla Live, asking these questions about deleting spaces and stuff. So Machine, how are you going to make up for it in the next 5 minutes?
Oh, look, I have a job, and if I was to charge you for my time, I mean, it would literally be at least $100 an hour. So even if I stayed here for 10 minutes, right? I mean, you still got to pay me like $16, which is more than you make on this dumb show every day because you're losing money. And so you would even lose even more money. And I am contributing this conversation, even these very words right now, which most people roll their eyes, but deep down, 25% of your audience loves it. Okay. And I'm providing that to you for free. That's what I'm doing.
Yeah. One thing you are not providing is accurate math. $100 an hour for 10 minutes is not 16. It's actually $70 because it would be 16.66666. And ChatGPT was correct again. Your
I did
technical
that
expertise.
instantaneously. Okay. And you had to go look at an algorithm. That's the difference between you and me. My computer in real time still works pretty well. Yours did not work at all. You had to go actually use a physical computer.
You got a 6 out of 10 from ChatGPT yesterday. But I hope you do better today.
I think they didn't like the
exactly
jokes about the other people.
Yeah. All right. What do you think about this question by Luce, who said Tesla should be producing this low-cost vehicle? We kind of provide a couple of examples of why, a couple of reasons why Tesla is not producing right now. It's not a priority. Lauren had a good argument. What do you think, Machine? And the same question I asked Luce, same question for you, which is, what % of take rate do you have to see in FSD to green light the $25,000 lower cost Tesla project?
I think they're not making it because right now, because of the demand crush and margin crush on Model 3 and Y, which caused them to have to effectively lower the prices quite a bit to where the gap between that and the 25K model weren't as large. If you start producing the 25K model in large quantities, that would push down demand for the 3 and Y even more, because there's not too big of a price difference. And the fact is they planned on doing, the other part of that is they planned on doing it in Mexico, probably to get even lower costs. And, maybe right now it doesn't seem like they could get as big of a cost difference. And if they had to produce this thing and sell it for 27, near 30,000, there'd be a lot of demand for it, but it just wouldn't be a big difference between the 3 and Y. And I would just speculate overall, those two things combined means it wouldn't overall grow earnings significantly. Whereas obviously with FSD getting to a point, if you can get to a point of unsupervised, I think there, no one disagrees, right? Unsupervised FSD, you could pump out so many robotaxis and make a bunch of money on them. That's a much more positive proposition in terms of company valuation. And if you want to go back and say, well, what point could you get FSD supervised to be so good that it would be worth selling a compact model? It's hard to say. The take rates would have to get pretty high, over 50%. If you had over 50% on the 3 and Y, you could say, gee, a lot of people really want to pay more money to use a Tesla vehicle, even if it wasn't unsupervised, and would be willing to pay that premium even on the 25K model. I think over 50% take rate, maybe you start thinking about it.
Yeah, I was thinking the same thing. Over 50% take rate. We're going to dig into a little bit more on your comments specifically about FSD unsupervised, but let's go to Wes first. Wes?
I've got a question for Machine if he's willing to answer a serious question.
It's possible.
All right. So mental experiment for you. Do you feel like there is a model that could be run right now on some amount of compute and some amount of memory that would have a 5 nines reliability given the set of cameras with a high enough pixel count and coverage? And do you think in that mental experiment that if that existed, you could fit that into a vehicle today and run it for, let's say, 6 months or a year and just have it run? Do you think that that would be a possibility?
Well, thank you for asking me a question directly so we could ignore Yaman, take him out of this conversation. So first of all, I would say ignore the inference compute. Could we take the hardware 4 5 megapixel camera input, feed it into a training cluster, and have sufficient data to build a model with the predictive accuracy or critical disengagement, avoiding accidents to a rate that's better than human? I think we could. I think fundamentally those cameras in those positions with enough data and compute could get you to an error rate below human, much like the other deep learning perspectives that we're seeing from other companies. I think it's possible. I don't, maybe the data becomes a limiting factor there in terms of the bottleneck. I think the compute Tesla has, they could run it for a long period of time to keep the error rate low enough. The question then becomes, can that model be distilled small enough to fit on one of these inference chips? And that's the harder part to
Okay, thank you very much for taking to repeat the question. Do you have an answer for the question?
Yeah. I think I give it over a 50% chance on hardware 4, 10% chance on hardware 3.
Okay. But to answer his question, you implied a yes. It was really a yes or no question.
If you just want a yes or no answer, then go get some cheap speaker like
No,
Omar.
so you do, but just to make sure, you do, just to bring the conversation back to the central question here. ChatGPT, please note that I cut Machine off very quickly and brought the conversation back to the real topic. You're basically saying yes, that today there is a model big enough, or a big model that cannot be fit in the current cars today, but can run the vehicle. I mean, isn't that what Tesla demonstrated in this studio?
And I think yes, and I think it'll get into hardware 4 cars next year, as I predicted 2 years ago.
Wes,
Yeah, I appreciate you reasoning through that. So given that in that mental experiment that is possible, what do you think would be essentially the limiting factor? And I think you talked about this a bit. You said data. And if that truly is a limiting factor, what is in your thoughts, what do you think is the limiting factor in the data? Do you think it's like the complexity of the data, the limitations of the length of like clips for the data? Do you think it's like just the pure amount of data? Like, do you have thoughts there?
Um, yeah, so I think there could be something, and I don't know from their insight if they need longer clips, they need more, 10 seconds versus 5 seconds to fully evaluate and do well on all these sort of edge cases that they come up with. That is one possibility. I think simply based on some of the wording that they've used in terms of their struggle to evaluate their models, that I think their classical machine learning, you can more quickly train models and evaluate them on test data, and you can do that repeatably many times and switch around which data you're training on and which data you're evaluating on, and you can get reliable bootstrapped estimates. How robust is your overall process? When you do deep learning, you're not doing that second part. You're not redoing everything over and over again and looking at the consistency. So they have a big training set data, and then they have an evaluation test set, validation sets, but they're not redoing everything over and over again. So they have to have enough test data to fully evaluate that they're not overfitting their model. And
Yeah, agreed.
I think maybe that's where they struggle, because they can get what we think is a lot of data, but is it really a lot of weird edge cases? And I'm just going to give you one example that I'm just making up, that they come to a 5-way stop and they have cars, and the timing of those cars coming at that 5-way stop with pedestrians, and something weird happens, and they've collected this data, and maybe they have 2 cases of this data or 5 cases, but then they have to go train on 4 and evaluate on 1. And is that reliable enough to where it works every time in the future? And I think they may not have enough data to do that over and over again to where they're consistent yet. And I'm not probably explaining this well, but it's something where
You don't say.
they they need another order. They may need more data, order of magnitude. I don't know. I work on this problem in real life all the time, and I think it's a struggle for any data scientist, machine learning. So I think based on their wording of what they said, I think that could be an issue.
Cool. Yeah. It does seem like when faced with things that it's obviously not trained on, like, you give the example of the 5-part intersection. There's actually an intersection in Seattle when I was on Google Maps. It's a 6-way intersection, and it's in the old part of Queen Anne where there's just it's craziness in this section. And when I was on Google Maps on traffic, this was the most missed turn in all of Seattle in this section, in this one intersection of Queen Anne. So I get that that's a challenge. However, I've taken FSD there a number of times, and it's handled it well, because I think it extends to those types of complexities. Where I'm not seeing it extend to certain complexities is things truly like it just isn't handling. And I'm wondering, like, if it's a data issue or if it's more of an architecture issue, or if it's just like back propagation issue. Like, why on earth wouldn't it know about like a blinking yellow, like those issues that we've had in the past? Like, these are kind of random things where obviously it's been trained on blinking reds and blinking yellows. In my thought experiment, I would assume that with tens of millions of clips that there has to be at least 1 or 2 clips like that in there. I can see it having maybe 1 or 2 clips of more than a 4-way intersection or a two-way intersection or a three-way or even a one-way intersection, where it's just like a sidewalk with a stop sign. But at the end of the day, like, it needs to be able to extend these complexities and start to infer, literally what it's supposed to do. I think that is the thing that, when I think about the types of data that it's been fed and the amount of complexities that it's able to infer now, some of these other things are not extending into this level of reasoning that I think that we have as humans. And it's kind of this like tier 2 level of reasoning where you go from one, just having, the kind of data that you're fed in, what is right and what is wrong, and then you can kind of extend it a little bit into other things, little bits of complexity, but not actual true, like, reasoning with a set of multiple inputs. And you have to reason a little bit about each of them and then come to an even further reasoning about what to do. And it's those types of things that I feel like if the model was big enough and the data was big enough, that it would be able to do. But I appreciate your feedback, because I know that this is your sweet spot as a data scientist.
We have a number of hands and a great discussion. And we now have Omar and Yoda and Machine and Wes and Alexander and a number of others who are experts in this topic. So we have an opportunity here to have a great conversation. Okay. But we're coming up to about a limit of 2 hours per day in 19 minutes. If we get to 400 likes in 20 minutes, we're going to keep this conversation going for another half hour. Okay. So everyone in the X space right now, just like you would check your coat at a restaurant when you come in, take a moment to go up to the top of our screens, click into the YouTube channel, and hit that like button so we can get to 400 and keep this conversation going. We're going to take 30 seconds to do that. And if you're done already, like and repost the space, share the space with your followers so that they can do it too, and share the YouTube channel, get people to subscribe. Like Michelle, for example, just told me in YouTube live chat that all of his colleagues, after last night's AI amateur space, subscribed to the YouTube channel. Yesterday's AI amateur space was excellent. We had Omar, Robert, Michelle contributed a lot. Wes was there as well. Really great conversation. All non-Tesla AI topics that inform the conversations in this space as well. And you can find that on YouTube as well. So let's take 30 seconds for everyone to hit that like button through the link at the top of our screens. Quite a few people let me know of their code check number as well. What number of like you were in live chat and replies, and they were this code check number this. I love it. Wes, we have a great question for you in YouTube live chat from No Clue, who asks, do you believe synthetic data can play a larger role in edge cases?
I think it plays a huge role in edge cases. And when we were working on the simulation stack, it was like kind of a foundation at that time for creating things that were really, really difficult to get. So back then, we had a very limited set of professional drivers driving around gathering data, and to be like, okay, we need you to gather this and gather this, and we need like at least 20 examples of this. But when our simulation stack came up, we'd get some type of data in that showed that we had an issue, and we could easily just feed that into the simulation engine, and it would create all of these different, minor little perturbances, in the data, and allow us to see exactly where the issue was occurring. Because back then it was very rudimentary AI that we were dealing with versus what they're dealing with now. So I assume the explainability of like what the model is doing can be much more harder to kind of triage. So being able to feed it, these tiny little perturbances of data into a model that is essentially showing you what it's doing. If it's acting in the exact same way, or what causes it to change, or what causes it to just tweak itself a little bit, is really, really, really valuable. For the AI engineer to be able to see, like what's going on inside of the model without deep analysis into the architecture, or potentially going through and retraining with just changing like a bunch of different weights, and retraining to see if there you can cause some type of change in the model output, or breaking down the model into its different layers and trying to extract what's happening at a certain layer. Like all of that is super time consuming versus just perturbing it just a little bit and just running thousands of different examples and simulations. So yeah, I think it has a huge value.
Thank you, Wes, and thank you, No Clue, for the great question. Machine, would you like to add to that?
Yeah, I would just say I agree with those things, and you can definitely use simulation a lot to augment your training data set, especially for iterating on cases that you can't collect manually. I've talked about that a lot, and how you still need real world data because you can't think of all the weird edge cases and hypothesize them just with simulation. So you need both, and they kind of multiply together. The one thing I would posit though, or hesitate on, is that it's harder to use simulation properly for evaluation. You can use simulation for evaluation, but it can also skew your results and make you think you're performing better than you really are. And that's where I go back to, they really need a lot of real world data for evaluation, because if you use simulation in evaluation, you can kind of grading your own test. And I've seen that a lot, and it can skew your results. You still can use them for a unit test and whatnot, but for truly saying, hey, we're at this level of fidelity, this level of error rate, you need to have a lot of real world data. And yeah, so I think that's still a challenge.
Inflexity.
Yeah, I definitely agree, because the human brain can't comprehend what it does not know. And if we only train it on what we know, then the AI system will never truly be smarter than us. And one more thing that was going on in the conversation earlier about how the AI is able to handle the tougher parts much better. So, I would connect it to the point that before we had all of these AI models back in like 2016, 17, that sort of time period, the belief was that AI would initially take over, would easily do the tasks such as text generation, or, it would be it would be good at repetitive tasks. And people believe that in the end, when everything is good and ready, AI will finally be able to be creative. But that was the exact opposite approach. Sam Altman talked about this on a podcast somewhere, that we thought that AI would be able to do everything that was simple well. And when we are done with everything else, we'll be able to make an AI that is creative, that is able to do art, that is able to think, differently. But that was the opposite thing that actually happened in real life. And that is a similar case with FSD as well.
Yoda.
Yeah, I have a question for Machine and Wes, and it's definitely meant to be sort of serious. So thank you for considering. If you were to really step into the role of Vashuk and sort of a director of AI, what strategic options would you explore when asked by Elon, and what would you recommend? The context of it, of course, is that you've got the Hardware 3 vehicles, hundreds of thousands of them out there. You've got the talented engineering resources at your will, at your disposal. You can pivot in any direction. What are the 2 to 3 strategic options you would put on the table, and which would you recommend? Just to put a couple out there for thought starters, you might say, okay, let's double down on the data challenge. Or you might say, okay, we better start thinking about retrofitting the design. Or you may say, let's cut the cord on hardware 3 and allocate our limited resources towards hardware 4 and above. So yeah, would love to hear your thoughts, Wes and Machine.
Wes.
Yeah, it's a great question, and honestly, like I'm sure they're thinking about this quite a bit. It's one of the reasons why I asked that thought experiment, because in the limit, you want to know, like, what would it take to like do it now? And if you knew you knew you could do it now with some amount of more resources, then how do you get there as fast as possible? And I think the largest strategic thing that they can do now is continue to pursue their hardware timeline with more compute and more memory to relieve those bottlenecks. Because once you get something that can actually work, let's just say not even in the car, but in simulation, this is that thought experiment. Like, you have infinite compute, infinite memory, you can have an infinite model size, you should be able to drive. And then keep paring it down, scaling it down until you get something that fits into the car. Well, you can fit it into the car sooner if you have more memory and more compute. So then you can get more miles, and real world it's better than simulation, go down that path. So that's like that strategy. Continue to produce, the latest, greatest hardware and kind of push on that timeline, which they're doing with, a couple different companies. So I feel like that's a great strategy. The other strategy is obviously to have a largest, training compute you possibly can. But there also is a company that's already self-driving. Granted, it's, geofenced, but they are self-driving in certain scenarios. And so I would also pursue a strategy of like, hey, we need to compute the amount of miles that we are driving without critical intervention in these same kind of geofenced area. And I would want to compare what we're doing to that to be sure that we're kind of in the same ballpark. So that would be a strategy that I would also say, we need to really pay attention to, because that's kind of like what we're really going for. I would say it's more about city than it is about highway, full self-driving, because I think that's where the largest market is. The value unlock is best there. And obviously not to have accidents on the highway, but would be like strategy 2. Like I would want to be sure that we're still, remaining competitive, that our solution is scaling well, and we know that we can have success is one of the possible outcomes. I think the third strategy is continue to pursue kind of the state of the art. So you do this by continuing to be in touch with like what's going on in the development community. So I would definitely have a few engineers, if not many more, that have a part of their day to be sure that they're kind of reading these latest, greatest papers that are coming out, because there's a lot of really interesting things that are happening. There's a lot of innovative twists and tweaks on current architectures that are allowing model sizes to come down while keeping these benchmark scores high, or even exceeding benchmark scores with larger models. So smaller models are actually exceeding what larger models can do because of these tighter control loops that they have, which is fascinating. Honestly, they're doing a lot more with a lot less, and that's kind of the limiting factor for the vehicle. So I do feel like those kind of 3 strategies would be what I would pursue. Great question.
Thank you, Wes. We're going to get Machine's answer in a second, but just want to give a quick shout out to Steve. Steve on YouTube just tipped $10 in super chat and says, "Great conversation. I propose a new engagement campaign. Tally up super chats each day and extend the show by 1 minute for every $1 in super chats." And he sent $10. He says, "Here's my bid to extend for 10 minutes today." Thank you, Steve. Current like count is 268. So we're not going to get to 400, it looks like. But because of Steve's super chat, we're going to go on for another 10 minutes. Machine, what's your answer?
Well, first, I'm glad Wes went first, as someone who actually worked for Tesla as a manager. So, I mean, it's like going from a president to like a local mayor in my answer. But I would say, first of all, I think what Wes explained are probably all great things, and things that Tesla is doing. And I would just say on the last one, I liked the most because about them working on state of the art, because I've worked for companies where I proposed, hey, we're going to do this classical method and get you, minimal viable product. That's what you want. But hey, let's have this guy who's working part-time, he work on the more advanced deep learning stuff. And there's like, no, we don't want anyone doing that. I'm like, this is so dumb. You need to build up the experimentation infrastructure for the next gen model. Also, it's for employee morale to work on that stuff. And Tesla's been doing that. That's how they got to V12, right? They were doing all these other techniques. And meanwhile, in the background, someone's working on end to end. It's not like it just came up a year ago. And you see what happens. Now they made another step because they continue that process. So I think, they think about all these things. I think from the perspective of what would I do differently is probably somewhat in communication. If Tesla truly has the idea or a model, let's say, in simulation that works extremely well, I think it might be valuable to better communicate that to the public, to better support and get confidence that they are on closer to that path, to that destination than some people think. I think, unfortunately, the CEO has said so many things over the years that it's hard to believe him. I think Ashok has a lot more credibility, and he's beginning to say more bullish things. And so I think it's kind of like if someone's like really innocent, you would see them be emotionally and passionate about it. And if they truly believe that they're getting close to this, I want to see that in them. I also, of course, think they should just discard working at hardware 3 if that's taking up resources to their end game of getting to autonomy. I don't know that it is taking up resources that would be better spent elsewhere, but that's a more minor issue, of course.
Thank you, Machine. And Crunch, the Grace Hopper, just tipped $20 to extend the conversation another 20. So we're going to go on for 30 more minutes with this great set of speakers. Despite Machine's wishes and dreams that this space would die, and
I have to go. Can I say something quickly?
thank you, God. Go ahead.
I have to go because I actually have a meeting at work. I would just say thank you, Wes, for the conversation. I'm really upset that it's extended 20 minutes because I thought I could push out Omar from not getting a chance to speak, and I failed.
Thanks, man. Take care.
Yeah, with that, Omar, welcome. And Machine, I hope your meeting fails. Omar, what do you think about the conversation that Wes and Machine was just having? Any thoughts on that?
I'm not sure I followed what they were saying. I came in late.
Okay. All right. Alexander, any thoughts on your end?
Yeah, I just want to dunk on Machine a lot. I think if we get to 400 likes, I will dunk on Machine so hard that he will actually start crying, and we can take those tears and squirt it on hardware 3, and it will become hardware 5.
Hey, Alexander, ChatGPT actually, I don't think I posted this on the DM group, but ChatGPT gave you a thumbs up and good grades for defending. It said defending Europe effectively. Yesterday's space. Anyway. Wes, question for you. So this hardware 3 versus hardware 4 topic is hotly debated for a long time now, and doesn't seem to be like people don't seem to like they're really curious about if their car is going to be able to robotaxiable. But I think there's an argument to be made that even hardware 4 AI 4 vehicles is not certain. We don't know yet. So my question to you, as somebody who's worked at Tesla and experienced on both on the hardware and the software side of things, what probability do you assign that AI 4 Teslas will be added to the Robotaxi network in the next 5 years?
Extremely high, if not 100. The reason that I say that is because Waymo is offering 100,000. I think the number is 100,000 driverless rides a week now in geofenced areas. So we all know that Tesla's pursuing the general solution, and they could conceivably go to a geofence solution if they wanted to. And honestly, I don't think they're going to do that, but they could. That could be a pivot. So I apply the percentage based on that, is that they could just geofence an area and just do that. They've demonstrated that they can do geofencing. It's not hard. It's actually pretty darn easy. So I'm not saying that they will. I'm just saying that they could. And if they were to do that, I think they would basically just decimate Waymo very, very quickly. Because we have already seen, thank you, Omar, is that FSD already operates more efficiently. Now, reliability wise, I don't know. I Tesla knows, obviously. But we don't really know. We have a somewhat of an idea, but yeah, that's kind of the quick answer.
Thank you, Wes. And in the meantime, the super chats are raining in YouTube. Nick L just tipped $100. Had to prove machine wrong. We the people want to hear the space and love the space, Nick L says. That's amazing. And Taya also $10 super sticker. Steve's idea is really working to keep the space going. I actually can't go for another 2 hours today, but we can do another 3 hour space tomorrow. How about that? Wes?
Hey, those people that are doing this, thank you so much. This is super cool. Thank you for helping Yaman out. I find this space to be truly valuable. I've been super busy over the past year doing special projects, so I'm happy to have the time to attend again, and I'm happy to see that things are going well. And I have been listening. I just haven't been able to provide, be a speaker or answer questions, but I should be able to in the near future. So I'm really happy that people are responding well to that. Thank you.
Thank you, Wes. And Amy, thank you as well for the $5 super chat. Yeah, this is amazing. Alexander.
Yeah, I have a question for Wes. So I live in Europe, in Sweden, and we only have autopilot here. In your opinion, why don't you think Tesla is updating the autopilot software to make it less shitty?
Yeah, obviously working on that would require engineering effort. And then if you just kind of split or put more effort on that, then you put less effort on, kind of solving the generalized solutions. So that's a strategy. So I feel like more often than not, that's Elon's kind of answer to like what he should be pursuing. It's kind of all hands on deck. And I will answer this in a little bit more detail, but I have to talk to the service deck that's at my house. But I appreciate the question.
Sansu.
Hey, Wes, welcome back. My question is, do you think amount of compute is more important versus hardware capabilities for the inference computers?
Wes, did you get that question?
I think he said he's busy with the technician he has at the house.
Okay, great. Omar, question for you. Drew, thank you very much for the $5 super chat. He says, I'm proud of myself for being a good listener. Thank you, Drew. Omar, question for you. So Waymo obviously has a huge inference compute in the trunk. And that's part of the reason why they're able to provide autonomous rides today. Do we know the scale of the inference compute they have in the trunk? And how does that compare to hardware 3 and hardware 4 compute capability?
I mean, they haven't really provided a lot of detail on the amount of compute they have in the trunk, but they also have much higher processing requirements as they're inputting LiDAR, dealing with HD maps and all kinds of other stuff, not just inferencing the model. And in terms of Europe, I mean, they are working on an improvement for Europe. It's called FSD. It actually works in Europe. The only thing they're trying to do is make sure it's actually legal to ship it, right? So you don't want to have really two development tracks. They're working on one solution for the world. And hopefully by next year, they'll approve sending the update out. Then, in terms of autonomy, I don't think it has anything to do with geofencing, really. Like, you could put hardware 3 or hardware 4 in a geofence. That doesn't magically mean it's going to be intervention free, right? So at this point, success is certain for FSD. We've seen real driverless services in the world. We've seen real driverless rides on FSD. We've seen driverless rides in parking lots on hardware 3 and hardware 4. How long is it going to take? What hardware is it going to take? Maybe that's an open-ended question, but all the cars are designed to have their hardware be replaceable. All the cars can run the software that exists today and have no problem doing that. So it seems for the first time, when we started this project 5 years ago and we had Autonomy Day, people said, well, is it really possible to drive a car with just cameras? It turns out the answer is yes. And, they've now demonstrated driverless rides on hardware 4. We've got hardware 5 coming down the line. I think it's pretty highly likely, probably more than 99% at this point, that they will achieve self-driving with computer vision. And if they can do that on any hardware generation, then they're going to have millions of driverless cars. I mean, in one day of production, they'll have more driverless cars than Waymo. So most people haven't really acknowledged that reality. They're still kind of in the space of, is this going to happen? Rather than, okay, we're actually seeing the light at the end of the tunnel here.
Yeah, but on the other hand, to kind of argue a little bit, push back a little bit. There's also the point that if Tesla takes, like, even if you agree that it's going to happen, 100% will happen, and a lot of people in the space do. The timing also matters, right? If Tesla takes 10 years, and then Waymo also scales across the country, across the world, by declining cost of compute and hardware, sensor suite, maybe they start removing sensors, then the economic profit that Tesla would be able to generate from the Robotaxi network is lower versus if Tesla did it next year. Is that not correct?
Tesla has more users, more miles, more people. I mean, they're doing it today. Tesla's financials are Waymo's financials with a negative sign. So Waymo's burning more than $2 billion. Tesla's generating more than $2 billion. I mean, the thing just drives so much better than Waymo. It's able to pull off moves so naturally, whereas Waymo's jerking. It's taking a long time. I really think we're going to look back and laugh that everybody was hyping up Waymo so much. Just because you're the first driverless service doesn't mean you're going to take over the world.
Alexander.
Yeah, I want to push back a little bit. Obviously the speakers here maybe don't know about the state of autopilot in the US right now, but if autopilot still phantom brakes a lot in the US and brakes for a truck that is like near the center line and stuff, if the answer is no to that, then they already have a solution that they can ship to Europe.
I mean, I'm not really sure what you're getting at. I mean, the software works in Europe. They've demoed it in Europe to people. They're ready to ship it into Europe as early as Q1. Literally, the only thing holding up them shipping it into Europe is the UNEC regulations. If those change, they'll ship it very quickly.
Yeah, but
Ellie. Sorry, Alexander, do you have a follow-up?
Yeah, that is not my point. I don't think it's going to happen in Q1, but they have had this autopilot software in Europe for years and years, and it never became better. Arguably, it became worse.
Yeah, it's kind of like you're saying, hey, why aren't they doing any updates to Windows 95? Windows XP is out. They're doing updates to Windows XP. They have made minor updates to the old autopilot, but the focus is going to be on FSD going forward. So for Europe to really realize these years of improvements, and you guys are going to be shocked, your jaw will be on the floor. if you ever get this update and you see how much the improvement is, you'll see what they've been working on. But that is really the focus, is getting FSD into Europe, not, making minor improvements within these strict regulatory rules that, you can't let the wheel turn too much, right? You wouldn't really want to divide the team's efforts into something that's kind of a sideshow like that. Even if European customers have to suffer a little bit, that's hopefully going to put pressure on the regulators to update the regulations and allow something more modern.
Ellie.
Omar, I'm curious to hear your take on almost the same subject, Europe. So let's assume that tomorrow, FSD will be permitted in Europe. So that's supervised. For the unsupervised Robotaxi network, is it going to be the same hurdle, basically the same struggle before they approve it, or once the green light is for FSD, it's going to go all the way?
Everything is going to be slower in Europe. But with examples of it working around the world, they'll eventually just point to it and say, hey, look, supervised FSDs in the US, let's bring it to Europe. Unsupervised FSDs in the US and China, let's bring it to Europe. So I'd say of the three major markets, US, China, and Europe, Europe will be last in every milestone, probably, at least just based on what we're seeing today.
Alexander.
Yeah, I don't know. Like for the US, obviously, I don't want to dunk on the US drivers, but like the bar is not that high in the US to make a car that is safer than a human. But in Europe, that bar is much lower.
Wes.
Just letting you know that I'm back after talking to the tech. So
Okay, great.
I just jumped back on the call, so I don't have any context.
Yeah,
but
Wes,
I'm back.
I have a question for. I asked a question to Omar in a second, and we don't have public information on this, but I wonder if you can estimate the inference compute on Waymo cars. So I asked ChatGPT. Waymo's autonomous vehicles are outfitted with a significant onboard computer power to handle real-time inference, given the volume and complexity of sensor data they process. While exact specifications aren't public, industry sources and previous announcements suggest Waymo's cars likely leverage specialized chips or custom-built AI inference hardware for deep neural networks, similar to or exceeding the performance of several TOPS, trillions of operations per second. Waymo's system likely manages dozens to hundreds of TOPS in total across multiple components, including vision and LiDAR processing, path planning and decision making, redundancy, and safety systems. To support this, Waymo's cars are also likely to be equipped with advanced GPUs, FPGAs, or custom designed inference accelerators to meet the high compute demands for deep learning model inference on the edge in real time. Wes, do you agree with ChatGPT's estimates? Dozens to hundreds of TOPS on board.
I think that, well, just so folks know, I worked at Google and I worked on TPUs, which are custom ASICs that run AI exclusively. And there's also edge TPUs that could potentially be run in vehicles. And those edge TPUs can do dozens to hundreds of TOPS. And Google makes these exclusively for Google products. And Waymo is a part of Alphabet. So I will leave it at that.
Okay, got it. And so, and Omar, what was the compute power on Tesla's Hardware 3 and Hardware 4?
Yeah, so I think the important thing to realize is Waymo began offering driverless rides in 2020. So if we're really trying to establish what is the floor of compute that's needed, like, okay, what was available in 2020? Maybe they had some NVIDIA GPUs in the trunk or something, or maybe they had TPUs, to Wes's point. I would assume they're probably using that today. Hardware 3, I believe, is at 144 TOPS. So that is, pretty powerful, obviously. That's actually split between two SoCs. So two SoCs at 72 tops, which means, it's two computers with 72 tops. Together, they have 144. And then, hardware 3, I think, is more than that, 300 something tops together. So pretty powerful, but power efficient computers they have in there. And I wouldn't be surprised if it is more than the first Waymo driverless cars had in their trunk.
Okay, so can you help me understand if hardware 3 has 144 and hardware 4 is going to have more than 3 or has more than 300 tops, and Waymo system likely manages dozens to hundreds of tops, then does that mean, or am I missing something, that they have about the same inference compute? Same order of magnitude?
Waymo and Tesla?
Yeah.
It's tough to know because Waymo hasn't disclosed how much compute they have in their cars. So, um, you know, I think obviously the Tesla car computer is operating on much tighter power requirements than the Waymo computer. They're really trying to make it a small, power efficient computer, super efficient, whereas Waymo can kind of fill up the trunk with more compute power. I wouldn't be surprised if they, had more compute power in their trunk. They also have higher processing requirements with the lidar and everything compared to just cameras. But they haven't given us in detail any specs. It may not even be directly comparable if they're using TPUs across multiple systems while Tesla's using their own chip.
Wes, would you be able to add color to that? Elaborate on that? I understand the limitation you have given that you worked on these things.
Yeah, I kind of have a high limitation on the things I can talk about. I would say though that those kind of estimations and numbers that Omar is providing are in my mind very, very, very similar or exact to what is actually happening.
Okay, got it. Well, that's interesting because I was under the impression that the large GPU clusters or the inference compute on Waymos all the way in the trunk and in cruise, generating all that noise as they're in the car, was far more, like orders of magnitude more than Tesla's compute. But I guess I'm wrong.
Maybe I'll add, things change rapidly. But on the Waymo side, now that they've gone to a new platform, the Zeekr platform, they're going to have access to a different level of infrastructure and hopefully like kind of native support for inference, not just add-on, so they don't have to actually post modify the vehicle after factory production. They can, this vehicle should leave the factory spec for autonomous driving. So I feel like the lower level of integration, the lower amount of, or the increased efficiency and the lower overall amount of energy required to do, mile for mile.
Thank you, Wes. Robert?
Sebastian Thrun, who started the Waymo company, told me that he chose LiDAR because it uses less compute than having to convert the cameras to a 3D model. He says today he would go with cameras. So it's hard to compare them side by side because of that. But where am I going to go with that? I think we can get there. I called up because of the guy who claimed Europe has better drivers than America. I've driven all over Europe, and that's simply not true, except for the Autobahn in Munich, in Germany, where you can drive without any speed limit. And the one thing that really bothers me about FSD is it only goes to 85 miles an hour. So for the European market, they would need to go up to however fast Model S goes, right? Which is what, 150 miles an hour or something like that. there was another thing. There's a lot of this angst about hardware 3 versus hardware 4. There's a lot of things that we need our FSD to do that does not require humanless driving, and they need to fix the rest of those things. For instance, smoothness, handling all the weird edge cases. There's an intersection here in Silicon Valley. Every time it misses the left turn and tries to stay in the straight lane. Every time, I've done it about 15 times now in the past week. They have to fix those things. Steve Jobs used to go around to the engineers and pull out RAM from everybody's computers because he needed to have the engineers fix the problems with low resource and computing environments. And so, don't worry so much. We're getting there. We're getting there really fast if you haven't paid attention. Of course, everybody on this call pays attention.
Thank you, Robert. Don't worry so much. Forget about it. We'll get there. Alexander was joking, I think, when he said about American drivers versus European drivers. Right, Alexander?
No.
Yeah.
Data speaks for itself.
Thank you very much for confirming that you were joking. Omar?
Yeah, so bigger and louder doesn't necessarily mean better. So, Tesla obviously designed custom silicon for this. They designed it all on one board to be super power efficient, to be super performant, and to hardware accelerate a lot of the functions that they needed natively on the device. If you have crews racking up a bunch of NVIDIA GPUs in the trunk and it needs cooling, just the fact that it needs more space and it's louder doesn't necessarily mean that it's more powerful or it's better. I think what we've seen is that having your own in-house silicon is almost kind of table stakes for putting out a product like this. I don't think it's any coincidence that the two companies that have found the most success in this, Tesla and Waymo, both do their own in-house silicon for accelerating neural network inference. So I think having your own chip design team that can design custom chips that are super power efficient, maximize range, and also maximize performance within the car are, it's a really important asset to have when you're doing something challenging like this. So when we look at AI5, for example, they're talking about even, 10 times more powerful. So, maybe something on the order of 3,000 tops rather than 300. So making your own computer, and really, you don't just want to add a lot of power in there. You want to do it in a package that's small, that's power efficient, that's quiet, but still packs a lot of punch, because if you've got a big supercomputer cluster in your trunk, it's going to eat your range.
If you have a big supercomputer in your trunk, it's going to eat your range, Omar says.
And it'll also eat your trunk, right? People need to put bags in there.
Yeah, I don't even know which one's more important, honestly. All right. Alexander, what do you have against Americans? Come on. You're in a space with Americans. What's going on here? Let's settle this right now. Texas is bigger and better at everything. You know that.
I'm the underdog. I need to push back. And data speak for itself also.
Okay, what data do you have that says Europeans are safer drivers? Give us what the data is.
Okay. You asked for it. The US, per 100,000 people, reported accident is 2,059 in the US. Sweden, 348.
Is this accidents per people? Is that what you said?
Accidents per 100,000 people.
Yeah, but I think the car ownership is much greater in US. So it has to be adjusted for that. So what's the accident number per car on the road?
That's why I use per 100,000 people. It's per capita.
No. If the car ownership per capita is higher in the US, accidents per capita are going to be higher just because of that. But let me ask you this. Just look at Tesla's safety report and how many miles per accident. You can compare Europe versus NHTSA's number. While you looked that up, Robert.
If you drive in Europe, you're usually on a 2-lane road, 4-lane road, 2 lanes each way. Go to Los Angeles. They have 10-lane freeways. It's fucking insane. So the accident rate is partly due to the complexity of the road that we have here. It just doesn't measure up against Europe. Europe doesn't have the same kind of traffic, doesn't have the same kind of complexity, doesn't have the same kind of road surface. In Spain, your roads are so smooth; they're like a baby's ass. Here in San Francisco, man, there's potholes and there's poorly laned roads and all that. So it's a different world.
Excuses.
I'm
Okay,
half German.
Alexander.
I'm half German. I study this. By the way, we were talking about geofencing before. I asked the Mercedes engineers, how are you going to go through the Arc de Triomphe in Paris, which is a very complex thing to drive around. It's like 6 lanes going around a roundabout with a lot of complexity, a lot of traffic. Mercedes-Benz says, we're not even going to try that. We're going to drive you around.
Still, you're more likely to die in America in a traffic accident than that roundabout.
Yeah, Alexander, you're not answering the question here, because obviously, cars in US are larger. When there's an accident, the risk of a serious injury is greater just for that reason. But that doesn't mean Americans are any less safe drivers than Europeans. So I asked you a specific data, which is miles to accident in Europe versus US is probably the metric that we can compare. So I asked ChatGPT, which drivers are safer, Americans or Europeans? The safety of drivers between Americans and Europeans varies, influenced by factors like road infrastructure, cultural attitudes toward driving, law enforcement, and vehicle regulations. Here are some insights based on available data. Fatality rates. Europe generally has lower fatality rates than US. On average, the European Union reports fewer road fatalities per capita and per kilometer driven compared to US, which is what Alexander says. But in my opinion, it's not the metric to compare here due to various factors involved in that. 2, speed limits and road safety laws. European countries often have stricter speed limits and safety laws, such as higher seatbelt use and fewer driving under the influence cases, with active enforcement. Many European cities are designed with more pedestrian-friendly features, bike lanes, and public transit, all contributing to lower car usage and speeds, which again doesn't really address the question here, ChatGPT. Come on. 3, driver training. Getting a driver's license in Europe tends to be more rigorous, often requiring extensive training and multiple tests. In contrast, licensing in the US can be comparatively easier, especially for young drivers. That could be a contributing factor, but again, it doesn't answer the question. Vehicle standards. European countries generally require vehicles to meet higher safety emission standards. This includes regular inspections, etc. Still doesn't. So let me ask in a more specific way. Let me just check if we have any hands. No. Okay, so let me ask, what are the miles per accident in Europe versus US? US, one accident every 500,000 miles, though this can vary widely by state and road type. In Europe, one accident every 1 million miles, indicating that Europeans generally experience fewer accidents per mile traveled. However, as with the US, this number varies between countries and road conditions. Countries like Sweden, which is where Alexander is, and the Netherlands tend to have some of the best road safety records in Europe. Factors such as road design, safety infrastructure, and stricter enforcement of traffic laws in Europe likely contribute to this difference, as European cities and roads are often designed to prioritize safety for all road users, including pedestrians and cyclists. Okay, so Alexander, there's your sport right there. That's the sport that you needed to back up your claim. Go ahead.
Yeah, ChatGPT just dunked on you all. Thank you, ChatGPT. Add that to the record.
No, I don't think anyone claimed Europeans are not any safer than Americans. It's just that we asked for specific data, and it took way longer than it should to get that data. It looks
Yeah,
like
but
2x
I told you.
miles, 1 million miles per accident. Amy reminds me on YouTube live chat that we're getting close to 300 likes. Thank you, Amy. We need 7 more people to head over to YouTube through the link at the top of your screens and hit that like button. 300 likes. The more it's very important because likes determine how much the algorithm pushes the YouTube video to new viewers, and number of viewers and watch hours directly correlate with ad revenue, and also subscriber count also accelerates if there are more likes per video. So it's very, very important that people take action to support TSLA. Alexander.
Yeah, I also want to say that what did we all learn today? We all learned that we should not question the Swedish guy.
Okay. Ellie.
I gotta say, I mean, I used to live in Europe. I've been in the US many times, and I'm from Israel. I don't know what it says about me, but I just gotta add, Alexander, if you are living in the suburbs of the US and you need bread, you need to drive to the store. In Europe, most of the times you need to walk. So that means that you drive more, so you're more upset, you're more anxious, you're more. It's all about the culture and in the infrastructure. Sorry, the structure. So I know what you mean, but what they say is important: culture and the road conditions and all that stuff.
Yeah, but Yarman tried to get around every single metric, and ChatGPT just kept on dunking.
All right. Omar.
Yeah, it looks like Tesla Energy just announced a new product called the Powerwall 3 expansion. And this allows you to take an existing Powerwall 3 and expand it with new capacity. They've cut the installation time down by half. So that looks like a great addition. If you have an existing Powerwall, you can buy one and then add more over time.
How is that? How is this different from previous Powerwalls where you could just add more Powerwalls?
While this is designed specifically to expand an existing installation, the installation time is cut down by half. To expand it, it's much simpler, and I think it's lower cost as well.
Thank you, Omar. And we have a reply from Awakened Pilot quoting Teslascope, who says, "We noticed a new Tesla software update, 2024.32.100 on a Model 3 performance in Colorado. This is a hardware for 2024 Model 3 performance in Colorado, getting a new software update. Interesting. Is this an FSD update, Omar? Do we know?
I don't know, but V13 is supposed to be showing up sometime soon, so I'm going to be watching that Teslascope page closely.
All right, Robert.
In America, the humans are actually getting worse at driving than they used to be. And why? It's mobile phones. In Germany, when I was last there on the plane, everybody was reading a newspaper, not looking at their phones. It's a different culture. It's a different set of roads. It's a very different world in both places. So I understand it can be safer per mile or per capita. It's a different world here. By the way, if it works here and it's less safe to drive here, then it'll work better on a safe road in Europe. It's really good at freeway style driving, which is a large part of what you do in Europe is 2-lane fast roads with no cross traffic, right? It's like our freeway or our interstates. FSD is already pretty good there.
Thank you, Robert. Yana.
Hello. Hello, Yaman. How are you?
Good. How are you? What do you got for us?
I have a lot of for you. Robert just told about Germany, and I'm in Germany, and I'm not German. And we had a very nice conversation last year with Robert, and I said to Robert that I do adore BMW and Mercedes-Benz. And we were talking about EV. And I understand that Germany is far behind America, for instance, and Tesla as well. I recently went to Frankfurt's Tesla office and tried every single car there, and I really enjoyed it. And I'm a driver without driving license because it's a long story. So you had to buy driving license in Moscow back in 2000, and I refused. I refuse to do so. You're right, because it's like you're buying a ticket to your own grave. So, but yes. So now I'm, Robert. I think I'm in your camp now. So I see the benefits of Tesla and technology. Yes, it's outstanding. And so I will swear now for Tesla, and I'm a convert of Tesla, so to say. I'm going to pass my driving license because you can't drive without driving license in Germany, unfortunately. I can drive, yes, but I don't have official driving license, right? So because Russian police told me, you're okay, but come next time when it's minus 35 degrees outside, Celsius, not Fahrenheit.
Okay. Thank you very much, Yana. Appreciate it.
So,
all right, everybody.
Anyway, I just joined.
You have a question? Okay, thank you very much. All right, Omar, we have a couple of things that we're going to talk about. Since you joined later, I want to get your views on some of the topics that we discussed earlier. Ford announced earnings yesterday, Q3 earnings, big Q3 revision for their 2024 guidance. The stock is down 9-10% today. Do you think Ford, Volkswagen, and others are kind of going the way of bankruptcy in the near term here?
Well, Ford and Volkswagen and the legacy automakers are basically imploding, would be a good way to summarize it. Stellantis, you name it. None of them are really doing that great. There's varying degrees of it, but the volatility in the industry has not been kind to them. Rates are still relatively restrictive. And we're talking before autonomy, before the acceleration of electrification. They're just stumbling on their own feet. And I found Ford's earnings yesterday particularly eyebrow raising. You look at their EV business and they are growing volume without growing revenue because of their inability to compete with Tesla. I think they've lost more than $3 billion on their EV business year to date. For the third quarter alone, they had a $1.2 billion EBIT loss, which is what they disclose for their EV division. Essentially, I think they had 1.6 billion in EBIT for their gas car business. So essentially, their losses on the EV business, a much smaller number of EVs, essentially killed most of the profit of their gas car business. They also have, of course, the Ford Pro division selling to commercial customers, governments, where they also made 1.8 billion. That was their biggest division, but the EBIT margin on the EV business for the year to date is negative 150%. And it's, I think, 106% for the third quarter. So if you go buy a $40,000 Mustang Mach-E, Ford generally is losing more than $40,000 on it, even after accounting for the money you gave them. So it's really a shockingly bad business. The cost of good press is very high. It's essentially wiping out their ICE profits from the sale of ICE cars at dealerships. And I think it's ultimately unsustainable. So what you're going to continue to see, I think, is these automakers having to come back to reality and put the business into a more sustainable position where they're either scaling down their EV efforts or shifting to hybrids, just strictly out of financial necessity. As autonomy and electrification accelerate in the coming years, the financial difficulties they're having now are going to look like nothing by comparison.
Do you think Ford and others will have to spend in total tens of billions of dollars in buying regulatory credits from Tesla, Rivian, and others to satisfy their requirements? Or do you think selling hybrids will maybe mitigate some of those requirements?
Selling hybrids does help. I think that we're really looking at record regulatory credit revenue. I think that we're going to see higher than expected need to buy these regulatory credits as some of these EV efforts wind down or don't hit some of their stated production goals. We're seeing a lot of that sort of backing down right now. And frankly, when you just look at the basic unit economics of their EV business, the regulatory credits are cheaper than making their own cars, right? It's actually the most cost-effective thing to do for shareholders. Maybe not the best thing strategically long term, but it actually makes sense, right? I mean, hell, Ford is losing so much money on a Mustang Mach-E, it would be cheaper for them to just buy everyone a Model Y with the money. They would lose less money if they just did that. But yeah, I think really it's a really it's a struggle across the industry for them, and they're going to have to just go and buy the regulatory credits. It doesn't make sense to expand. In particular, in Europe, we are going to see stricter regulatory emissions standards next year, and I think 80% of companies are out of compliance. So the record regulatory credit revenue we saw in Q2, I think they're going to break that record in 2025. There's going to be Europeans, US standards are also going to get stricter. There's just a debate over how much between Trump and Harris. But really, we're heading towards record regulatory credit revenue due to tightening standards, and also because of the failing unit economics of legacy auto EV businesses.
Exactly. I think this is very underappreciated. I think the amount of regulatory credit sales revenue that Tesla will generate in the coming years is underappreciated, both in Europe, US, and China as well. So globally, I think Tesla will end up selling tens of billions of dollars in regulatory credits in the next, say 5 years. Omar?
Yeah, this has to be truly one of the most incredible businesses I've ever seen. It's like that old Trump phrase from the last election, we're going to build a wall and Mexico's going to pay for it. Tesla's disrupting legacy auto and legacy auto's paying for it. These factories were literally paid for by these emission credits. And Wall Street keeps rolling their eyes. They say, hey, this isn't real revenue. They keep sort of factoring it out all while it hits new record levels. I mean, this revenue stream is not going anywhere in the next 2 to 3 years. So I really think that it's going to be a situation where these companies are being disrupted by autonomy, by electrification. And at the same time, we're actually going to have to pay Tesla and their peers to disrupt them faster. It is not a good position to be in for the legacy automakers.
Yes, and combined with the $30+ billion of cash in Tesla's balance sheet and the tens of billions of dollars that Tesla is going to generate from credit sales alone, this is good amount of cash that Tesla can use to build out its AI training capability in the coming years. This is a position, obviously, that legacy automakers can only dream about. They're seeing their revenues, profitability, take major hits in Q3, whereas Tesla appears to have the worst behind it now.
Yeah,
So
and
quite a turn of events.
one thing that also kind of was interesting as I was reviewing the deck is Tesla appears to have more liquidity than Ford. I mean, just in terms of their cash balance, Tesla's at 33 billion, Ford has 28 billion. certainly net of debt, Ford's cash position $7 billion. You know, Tesla has some debt, mostly backed by automotive leases. But you know, if you wanted to compare them, it would probably be something like 26 versus 7. And of course, Tesla has far greater access to capital markets, equity markets, all that kind of stuff. So really, we're in a situation now where Tesla is actually the bigger player in terms of liquidity.
Absolutely. So Tesla has more cash, more debt capacity, more demand for its equity. It also has an off-balance sheet asset that is not going to appear right now in income statement and balance sheet at all, which is the 7 million cars that are upgradable to FSD, self-driving with the software updates. And at this point, only a few 100,000 people have chosen to purchase and subscribe to FSD. But as FSD improves, just imagine 5 more million vehicles paying $8,000. That's $40 billion of a cash asset that's not on the balance sheet at this point. It's not in deferred revenue, because deferred revenue only shows the amount where people paid for it already, but Tesla hasn't delivered the capability with a software update. So this is off balance sheet asset, potentially $40-50 billion of asset that's not on the balance sheet at this time. It's very important to kind of understand this accounting concept. All right, we're gonna close this space in about 10 minutes. Okay, 10-minute warning. Thank you very much, Steve, for the great idea of keeping these spaces going per minute, per dollar in super chats on YouTube from now on. I'm going to adopt this as a great idea. Thank you so much, Steve. And also, the number of people who tipped today: Drew Soul twice, Steve, Crunch the Grace Hopper, and Nick L with a stunning $100 super chat that kept this space going. Tayo, Amy, and Drew Soul for a third time today. That's why we're able to go 3 hours, and we were going to go again tomorrow because I'm not able to continue beyond the hour extra today. I got to go to Paymore, one of our sponsors, to grab the MacBook Pro they're hooking me up with, so that I don't have to put ice on my laptop to be able to run these spaces. MacBook Pro has obviously the air cooling and everything. So I have to leave for that because I think they're gonna I agree to a time. So but tomorrow we're gonna go for another 3 hours due to the super chats given today. Okay, Omar?
So, on the point you made about FSD, I also think, just really quickly, it's important to note, I think Elon's commitment on the earnings call will be material to the breakdown of upfront sales versus subscriptions. I think if you're buying FSD, it's not just, hey, we're going to send you all the software updates, but he's actually said, we're going to make this right. We're really going to try and make this car driverless. Or if we can't, we're going to upgrade you. We're going to do whatever we can to sort of make you whole on that. So this is making FSD and an FSD purchase, I think, start to look more and more attractive. If I'm paying $8,000, but I'm not just getting the software today, I'm getting a commitment from Tesla that they're going to try and make this car driverless. That is going to be a huge driver of cash flows at some point in the future. It hasn't happened yet, but we do hear them saying that interest is increasing, conversions are increasing. Every one of these cars, I think, at some point is going to be upgraded to full autonomy.
Thank you, Omar. Bull 2035.
Hey, Omar, I don't think we've talked about this in a while, looking at the amount of production Tesla may do, let's say by 2030, 2029. Does this 1010 event change how you look at future production?
Yeah, I think the Cybercab is going to be the #1 Tesla vehicle produced. I think it's going to account for close to 50%, if not more than 50% of Tesla's production. You know, Elon talked about 2 million units. All the vehicles today are at 1.8 million units. So really, just to get a sense of scale, like this is Tesla's iPhone. This, for many people, will be the first Tesla product they ever encounter. and it'll be the most common on the roads, I think. So the Cybercab really is going to be a cornerstone of the lineup.
Thank you, Omar. Any other questions, comments? Otherwise, we're going to end the space. Let me see the like count on YouTube. Thank you very much, Amy, for keeping a fire under people's butts to go over there and head over to YouTube and like the space. 315. Alexander?
Yeah, I think we have another Swedish guy in the speaker board here, Tommy Lawson. I want to hear what he has to say.
Yeah, tomorrow. Tomorrow, we can continue with Swedish. You guys can count to us in Swedish. How about that? I think we made sure that Europeans are have greater number of miles between accidents. How about that? Okay. Thank you very much, everybody. I'm going to leave the X space open for another 5 minutes. Please, on the way out, just like you would check out your. Hold on 1 second. We have About Tesla coming up. About Tesla.
Yes, just stop by for a quick update. So I heard you were talking about this .100 update. .100 is usually a factory build, so like a patch. Whenever they change hardware at the last moment, they need to update the software. So I wouldn't be too excited about that. On the other hand, there is a new version just went out, 2024.33.5, which is kind of an odd one because it's a smaller number than other that we have released. I think this is a catch up for some older models. I see it's loading to a Model S 75D, like 2018 model. So again, this probably is not the new versions we are waiting for. It's just some catch up versions or patches.
Thank you very much, About Tesla, for hopping in and giving us the best and the greatest accurate information. Highly recommend people follow About Tesla if you're interested in FSD update versions and what's coming next. All right, thank you. I will keep the X space open. Please, on your way out, just like you would check out your code, go up to the top of your screens, go to YouTube link, hit that like button, subscribe, and share our channel so that we can bring you the best insights in the Tesla community in Tesla Live. Take care, and I'll chat with you all next time.